Welcome to Cranky Live Sports Talk, where passion meets action.
Hey sports fans, I am Cranky, and this is the Cranky Live Sports Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into the hottest topics, the biggest games, and the most controversial moments in sports.
Whether it's football, basketball, track and field, cricket, or soccer, we've got you covered with expert analysis, insider interviews, and unfiltered opinions.
Join me as I chat with the biggest names in sports, get exclusive insights and stories you won't hear anywhere else.
Cranky Live Sports Talk is where you can hear the real talk, the hard-hitting questions, and the hottest takes.
So, if you're a true sports fanatic, you don't want to miss out? Subscribe now to the Cranky Live Sports Talk on YouTube and hit that bell icon to never miss an episode.
Cranky Live Sports Talk, where sports come alive. Subscribe today.
Good evening. Drew Ross, how you doing? How's it going? Thanks for joining me. Appreciate you being here. It's today Tuesday. Can't remember days nowadays. It's all good, Drew Ross, all good. I'm here to talk some SSL, some Bolt, some of that good stuff. So how's everyone doing this evening? You guys can contribute to the conversation, since you may have as much much information as I do, because the information comes piecemeal. It doesn't really come as well as you'd like in a lot of instances. But it's a good topic to talk about, because I've said before, I'm going to be doing more trending topics. I know some people like to just talk about sports, and that's all good. Nothing wrong with that. But we're going to talk some stocks and securities limited today, which is SSL and Usain Bolt. Sort of walk you through the history of the fraud, supposedly where we are, some of the conflicting information that we receive, some of the issues I see when I review the process and what transpired and where we are. And then we can have some dialogue about this. I'm glad to get your input and your perspective. But it should be good. And by the way, so just I don't get miserable. I spend time doing this, people. So as you come in, just hit the like button, because I can't move this thing along unless I get my likes. Bless up, Chris Romans. How you doing? So we're going to do, and I spent some time putting this document together so that I walk you through timelines and things of that nature. And it's one thing we should think about actually and talk about is the old concept of fraud and the fact that people say it's Jamaica, it's a developing country, and that's why this transpired. But that's not true. Fraud occurs any and everywhere. Companies that have the best controls are fraud. Obviously, if you have terrible controls, frauds penetrate and perpetuate itself in your environment. I used to have, I had a discussion once a while ago with Lowell Hawthorne, who owned Golden Cross. And Lowell was saying to me, he wants to get out of the business of owning them of the Golden Cross because it was a cash business. And it was so easy to defalcate cash, even when you have cameras all around. And when I was going to college, I worked at Brinks, the armored car company. Back then, they used to count money. I'm dating myself here, the more traditional way. So you would be in a location, and we'd have cash everywhere, but the cash would be in cages. And people still found ways, even though you had cameras everywhere, you got searched when you go in, people still found ways. Well, you didn't really get searched when you go in, but you couldn't carry any sort of big bags in. People took gold bars, they took cash. It was amazing what people could do. So if somebody wanted to steal, they'll steal, right? They'll figure it out. But you're more susceptible if you don't have good controls in place. So let's talk about SSL. Now why I'm starting at the back versus the front. You can tell I was looking at this. But as you know, Usain Bolt, who's one can describe as one of Jamaica's greatest, if not greatest athlete, and one of the world's greatest athletes, he's done well financially, given his performances, the accolades he's gotten, and the monies and compensation he has received. Good evening, Ted Dexter. Thanks for joining. And obviously, when you earn a significant amount of money, obviously you want to not only save that money and not just spend the money, as we see a lot of athletes go broke after they made a lot of money. Think about Allen Iverson. Think about Walker, used to play for the Celtics, Darryl Walker. A lot of people go broke. You could name them maybe more than 1/3 of footballers, for example, who, or maybe more than half, would go broke after their playing days are over, either because they get swindled by their money managers, or they're just not sophisticated enough from a financial standpoint to understand money, how money should be spent, how money should be invested, how money should be saved to allow them to have a nest egg when they retire and get a continuous income throughout the remainder of their life. So we see this quite a bit. Bless up, Float. Thanks for joining. Quite a bit in terms of various arenas. And it's not only athletes, it's just in life in general. People come into a good amount of money and they believe it's always going to be there, so they spend it frivolously. So in Bo's case, obviously it appears he has investment advisors, and it appears these advisors would invest his funds with organizations who are charged with, licensed with, certified to invest his funds. And that's what the Securities Limited Company, SSL, that was his role, to invest both funds. Now, and let's sort of go through the discussion. Now, so we'll talk a little bit about the overview of the scandal. We'll talk about the timeline of events, which I think are very important, and sort of give you a view as to how Jamaica operates, because Jamaica is slow like molasses. People, when something happens in Jamaica, you better take out your chair and sit down. It's going to take a while to get done. And I think I say Jamaica a lot because if I do a comparative with the US, when things occur and you see those timelines, then you understand that things don't move quickly in Jamaica, fraud or no fraud. We'll talk about some of the key governance failures, because in a lot of countries, and a lot of them emulate the US and its markets, the countries put organizations in place, to provide governance and oversight of the various institutions who participate in financial services in their country. And Jamaica is no different, especially after what happened in the early 90s, throughout the 90s in Jamaica, with FinSec and all that, right? Where a lot of companies went out of business, insurance companies, financial institutions had a lot of tough time then. And it's not the Financial Services Commission who oversees SSL, but it's another organization, FinSec, that sort of ran with that and created some challenges there. We'll do some comparison with Bernie Madoff to see if there's any analogy between what we saw with Bernie, which was probably one of the largest, it's not the largest fraud in financial services. It was $65 billion US fraud. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll talk about how do we prevent this. And I'll walk you through a due diligence questionnaire I sort of put together, mainly for what companies should do to do it, but individuals with large portfolios can also do it. And this is a little bit up my wheelhouse, because I used to do some of this. So not the forensic part, but the internal audit part. And if you want to comment as I go along, please do so. I'll put your comment up. So background SNL, they manage high net worth clients' investments, or client accounts, I should say, not necessarily investment. Client accounts, they'll invest the money, or the client account money, in various instruments, whether it's stocks, bonds, whatever. They were well known in Jamaica before the scandal. But one word of caution was that they were previously flagged for a culture of non-compliance and mismanagement of client funds. So the first question you ask yourself when you see this is, and I think there was a report that came out maybe 5 years ago, maybe longer than that, talking to this, and subsequent to when the scandal came about, the person who was in charge of the authorities who oversee SSL resigned, actually. And we'll touch upon that a little bit. So well-known organization, had some challenges. Not sure if Bolt and his people were privy to this, because it's an imperative and it's very important to realize that party due diligence process is assessing the company, its compliance with regulation, its internal procedures, and we'll touch upon those before you decide to put your money there, because you want your money to be secured. Now, if you think about the US, for example, even though when the US had a financial crisis, clients didn't really lose money who invest through investment management firm who manage their money. A lot of companies went under because they were buying and selling for their own portfolio. So Lehman, Bear Stearns was mainly their money that they lost. Now, some companies may have lost client money because client invested in this instrument, but it wasn't a traditional fraud where somebody embezzled the money. It was that you invest your money, and when you invest, you can lose that money you invest, right? And you're always warned about this. Which if you buy a real estate asset, that asset could depreciate. If you buy a stock, the price could go down versus going up. Nothing's a guarantee. But if you notice what transpired in the US, which is the government didn't save Lehman and Bear, but it saved Citigroup, for example. And I know when Hung Paulson was the Treasury Secretary, he sort of forced every one of the major investment banks, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, some of them who didn't need money, but some needed it, to take investment. I think Goldman took there from Buffett. The Middle East invested some money, I think maybe in, was it Morgan? Barclays got money put in. Some of them needed the money, but some didn't. But everyone take it to make sure they're on the same page, which is just like give some kind of comfort to the marketplace and create some sort of environment where people are going to feel comfortable investing in the environment and don't lose trust and pull their money out. Because what normally happens in these situations is, and you see that with Madoff, when people get uncomfortable, they put their money out, that institution is in trouble, right? That's when it's always in trouble. And if you notice what happened in the US with Bear Stearns was sold for $1 to JP Morgan, Lehman assets got sold off, Merrill Lynch eventually also were as exposed as Bear and Lehman, and even though they didn't go under, they got bought by Bank of America. So a lot of major firms, well, Bear wasn't really saved. He was sold for $1 to JP Morgan. I wouldn't call that saved. I had friends who used to work at Bear. They lost, and they had a ton of stocks which they couldn't sell because the owner of Bear at that point, it was a public company, pushed back on them selling Bear shares. They lost all that money they had in Bear, right? But Lehman, obviously, assets were sold off. Barclays bought some of their business, and other companies bought some of their business. They had a liquidator there for years. Citigroup probably would have gone under if not for government intervention, and a few more companies, actually. But I digress. So let's go back to Bolt. So point I'm trying to make is that when these institutions are in trouble, the government may save, for example, banks, traditional banks, because it's about retail investors. But if you're a big boy with big money in this organization, like you see with Madoff, government's not stepping in. And they're going to say, you know what? Big boys got to take big hits. Now, what's the timeline of key events relating to the SSL fraud? January 11, discrepancies reported. The 12 Bolt notices millions missing. The reason why I have millions missing here, because when I did my research, I got conflicting data from different sources. So if you go to Forbes, for example, it had 12 million, 12.6 or 12.8 million. You go to the internet, just in general, it has 12 point something. If you read the Gleaner more recently and some more news report, it's saying 6 point something, which is sort of half the number, almost half the number. So I just put millions because I don't know what the number is, but he's lost millions. And here's a question I got to ask. And I have to drink my water regular. I have a question for you people. Do you know if Bolt knows how much money he lost? I'm asking the question again. Do you think Bolt actually knows how much money he lost? Because as I'm going through this and reviewing this, I'm getting a sense that something is amiss in all of this. And I think that happened at least a lot of time, which is, are they close to their money? Now, in July, there was an initial forensic audit done, reveals that there's systematic fraud. The employee obviously was arrested in March 23. So Lovell Networks that he think he knows. Okay. You think he knows? I'm not so sure. September 2024, SSL announces 30 million repayment plan, which and now we're in March. So it's 2 years now, people. In February, we saw some reports suggesting some of those funds never reached SSL. I think that came out in, they've leaked, in Jamaica, they leak stuff to the media because this is becoming political. I don't know who that is. I know somebody named Conflicts Boss. I don't know who you're talking about, Paul. You guys think Bolt knows? Okay. I've never heard Bolt come on and said exactly how much he lost, except he lost millions. And the question is, where was that money lost? But the recent reports sort of suggest that he needs to look in his own environment as to whether or not all the money was sent to SSL. Because I'm going to ask you a question, people. I'm going to say this. There were over, you know what, we'll get to that through the process. So let's go through this first, and then we'll have those questions. Now, more recently, Bolt expressed some frustration on, it was a Fix YouTube podcast that say, if this happened to him, what about regular people? Right? Meaning a person of his stature who have done so much, who's so well known, so well recognized, has had the country has been promoting the country's brand globally with his performances. What does that mean? Now, in Jamaica and in other places, there are a lot of call for transparency and restitution. Not only for Bolt, because to be honest, people, there are a number of individuals who are affected by these. Some of this is pension money, retirement money, and they don't get the same notoriety. I suppose there were also politicians. I haven't heard any of them come out and talk about how much they have lost. So things are on the quiet. And we don't know how this works. Jamaican people probably say, right? And they say this all the time. They say this with the English kid who play football. And them can't afford it. That's what them always say. Let me look at and get someone who can't afford it. My philosophy always is people should get what they deserve. So if Bolt deserved to get his money and he lost money and he should get back his money, then he should be compensated and reimbursed. It shouldn't be because he probably has resources. We don't know how much money Bolt have. As I said before, I'm not sure Bolt knows how much money he has. Now, his legal team demands repayment. Right? And I'm going to give you guys a story before I go further, which is interesting. Quick story. I worked at a firm. I won't say which firm it is. I'm very conscious of not saying whatever firms I've worked at. A major institution, one of the most renowned in the world, right? And I used to be in the audit group, so I covered up a certain business. And two partners in the firm. So these are people, the firm probably had about, say, 300 partners with about 30,000 employees. These are people at the zenith of the organization. It's public knowledge, so I'm not saying something was not public. It's public. Two partners there were swindled for about $5 million over, say, a 3-year period or so. And it was done in the UK. And the partners didn't know that they lost their money. It was only because one of them was going to make a donation to an elite university and realize that something is amiss here. Now, the perpetrator was their secretary, who moved $5 million of their accounts, and they didn't know. People, I'm going to say this in Patois. You know how much money you need to have? And these people are busy. Let me say this straight. They're very busy, right? They run businesses, don't have time for breathe sometime. But somebody take $5 million, you don't have no idea and take $5 million until something just pop up. And the reason why it happened, because even though there were good controls in place, the secretary realized that the people who were handling the money in the investment arm, when she made a request, and if they challenge it, she would push back, and her boss is maybe difficult, and those people were junior people, so they were afraid to push back on her. She would buy boats, she bought cars, her name was Geordie DeLory. Go look it up on the internet. Crazy situation, actually. But these things happen. So I don't want to make it look like, it's only somebody's financially unsophisticated. Happen to people who are knowledgeable about money also. But because there was more negligence than anything else, and the firm gave them restitution because the firm could afford it. Now, so both attorney came out and had a conversation the other day, and I wanted to play this first. It's about 15 minutes, so stay with me because it's all part of this whole setup and this discussion. I'm gonna play the verbiage.
Let me get from you what you make of this furor that's taking place over the comments Mr. Bolt made about the funds that are missing from his account.
All right. First of all, I think we should be fair to Mr. Bolt. and understand when he said, the government give me back my money, or some words to that effect, or the government must do something about it. One must understand that Mr. Bolt is not an attorney. He was not speaking in any forensic way to say the government has my money. He's saying that we have a government in Jamaica. Something has gone wrong at a financial institution. Something must be done about it. The matter has been moving along slowly, both in the criminal court and in the civil court. Now, persons ought not to ascribe to Mr. Bolt a political motive because he says the government should do something. That's very petty and without any merit whatsoever. But what has happened is that persons have now come down on Mr. Bolt and are saying, look, it's your fault why you have lost your money. And they are now entering into this victim blame, where you blame the person who suffered the loss or the damage and say it's your fault why you suffer this misfortune. And this is very, very unfortunate. And this is something that we believe we should discontinue, and we should understand that he's entitled to demand that the government does something about it. And there are reasons why he's so entitled. One of them is that the FSC, the body that is set up to regularize, manage, control, and see to it that financial institutions are compliant with the law, gave a certificate each year to SSL. So anybody who goes there, including the Prime Minister who had an account there, government departments and several members of parliament who had accounts there, they relied on the fact that the entity obtained a certificate from the Financial Services Commission, the FSC, and therefore they presume properly that the place is in good standing and a safe place to put your money. So you can't blame Mr. Bolt for going there. You would have to blame all the other persons who went there. So we find that he's demanding that the government should do something about it. Is the type of demand that citizens make when they are not satisfied that a matter being investigated by various government entities is going as quickly as he would like it to go. He was not ascribing any political favor, political support, or political condemnation. He was just demanding government action, which is common and is said by persons all over. When something happens,
so when you say
and
government,
they're not satisfied that it's been there too quickly.
So when you say government action, sir, what specifically, if anything, is Mr. Bolt requesting?
Okay. The matter is being investigated, and one person has been charged. That person could be described as a low-level employee or officer of the entity. It is more than curious that nobody else has been charged, and how can it be that not only Mr. Bolt's money, but all the other persons, including several senior citizens, their monies disappear from this entity, and nobody is being called upon. The officers, the senior persons who would have to transfer those funds. Because bear in mind that Mr. Bolt's funds were not taken in a basket or a scandal bag and put on a counter or put on the floor. It was bank transfer. It was transferred from a financial institution to SSL. So how did it leave SSL without a trace? It's not someone took up a bag of money and walk out. Checks and bank transfers were done to move this money Why this can't be found? What has happened? What has happened to the computers that disappear mysteriously? Why are we not having fulsome disclosure of the investigation of this matter? And why nobody else is even being interrogated that we know of?
Is there a testable proof, sir, that the funds actually got to the account? Because one of the accusations that's out there now is that the money was stolen before it actually got to the account. You've said it differently.
Well, let's deal with that. Who has the record, the information that the money was stolen and was not sent to SSL? Who has that information? And why not take it to the police and identify the person who stole the money? Why? Why this big red herring without a head nor a tail? Why? Well, let me tell you, Mr. Bolt's money was sent to SSL by bank transfers. The investigations conducted by Mr. Ken Tomlinson, who was put in charge by the FSC, his records confirm that Mr. Bolt's money was sent there. The persons who are saying it was stolen, which started at a certain media house, has not presented one bit of evidence to say it was stolen on the 10th of March and the amount stolen was $5 or $6. A red herring has been thrown across the path, and the question is, what's the motive for doing that?
I want to ask you what you think the motive is for doing that, and what do you make
Sorry?
of the... I want to ask you what you think is the motive for doing that, and what do you make of sections of the portions of the investigation being leaked without the public or yourself or your client being apprised of the entire situation?
Well, two things to be said about that. I am not aware that any part of the report from the investigators has been leaked. I'm not aware of that. If persons are saying they got parts of it by a leakage, then that would be something to be condemned and to question the reliability of the investigation, because they have taken bits and parts and leak it to their media of choice. Then you need to know why and why at this point it is being leaked, especially given the fact that the learned DPP is in today's newspaper as saying she's now ready to go to trial. What is happening?
Are you and your client a part of the investigation, as in have the authorities been reaching out to you or your client to get further information about what might have taken?
No, we have not been contacted for further information, and we have not been contacted by the investigators or the prosecutor regarding this leakage of information that the money never got to SSL. We have not been contacted about that. And we don't know from which source the leakage took place and how the leakage went to one entity and what's the power, right, and privilege of that entity to which the leakage went.
Can you speak, sir, a little bit about, I know that your client was on a podcast earlier this week expressing what is understandable frustration about the situation. But
yes,
can you speak further to what his considerations are, particularly for a country that he has given so much to, and the fact that he is now down millions of US dollars, and he seems not to be getting the type of response that he wants? Is he comfortable remaining here, or
is he comfortable with what?
Remaining here, or is he comfortable, or is he confident in the institutions that we have?
His confidence in the institutions we have has been shaken for obvious reasons. He has lost a lot of money. He is being kept abreast of what is happening in the courts and how the matter is being proceeded with. he's not comfortable with the way we are being informed about the results of the investigations. We know that foreigners were brought here. Investigations were complete, we are told, but his attorneys have not been afforded the privilege of even looking at any results from these investigations. And the reports would have been handed over to some government department, and if they have been leaked, maybe persons at those government departments or entities considered disclosure to a certain media is more important, more urgent than disclosure to the victims or the attorneys of the victims, which would be an appalling act of corruption were that to be the case.
Have you made any overtures, sir, to get further information? And have you
Yes,
made...
yes, we have constantly asked for information on various matters that we consider we should be made aware of.
What has been the response or the outcome?
We have not gotten the responses we need in all instances.
And you've said in a release that you sent out today...
Sorry, it's a what? I didn't hear you.
I'm saying you sent out a statement today saying that you would be making certain evaluations to determine what next legal actions you will take. Have you come to some conclusion about where
No,
you
not
head?
yet. We have not. We are awaiting certain responses and further and better information on certain matters.
All right. So as we close, sir, is there anything...
Sorry, has what?
Is there anything that you would want to say to the authorities or to the public who might be looking on and wondering what is taking place?
Yes, I want the public to understand that Mr. Bolt was in an interview which was very informal, and he spoke like a typical Jamaican. Mr. Bolt has no interest or intention to become in any political discussion or interpretation of his misfortune. When he speaks of the government should do something about it, he's speaking as a layman and not as an attorney. He's not saying that it's a political decision why he has suffered and it's anything to do with politics. He's just saying, do something about it. And the government did promise to do something about it. Dr. Clark, the then finance minister, did say heads would roll. So there's nothing wrong with what Mr. Bolt has said, and we should never interpret it as meaning he's anti-government or in any political canvassing or supporting one party or the other. Nothing like that. It's typical of Jamaicans whenever anything happens that the government is partially responsible for, and the government is somewhat responsible for allowing SSL to keep going all these years when they knew that there was a problem there and they kept issuing them with license. So there's nothing wrong with his demand.
Well, let me ask you this.
It's
Do you, sir, believe that there is any political malfeasance at play here? I'll leave the question at that.
I would say that the coincidence of certain persons coming forward to give legitimacy to the allegation that Mr. Bolt's money went the wrong place is uncomfortable and is not consistent with a general view in the public. That's what I would put it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon.
You're most welcome, sir. Have a good afternoon.
So that was Bolt's attorney, Linton Gordon, or Linton P. Gordon to be exact, talking about responding to, I think Bolt went on The Fix. Is that the name of the podcast? And he mentioned, as I indicated before, sort of what transpired and sort of taken to task about it, because people think that's a political. He's being political when he said the government should do something about it. And that's part of the problem Jamaica has, where you can't say anything about the government and it's not taken as if you're taking sides. I mean, the man lost money. It's a government entity that the government provides oversight for. As the attorney says, the license is granted by the FSC. The oversight is provided by the FSC. The organization is subject to audit. As the attorney says, and I'll talk about this a little bit, the company, as I mentioned at the outset in discussing this, had some issues of compliance, had some issues and complaints about managing client money. And so the regulators were aware, have been aware, and did nothing about it. What was interesting, he mentioned that the Prime Minister also had funds at the entity, but we hear little or nothing about that, which I find really interesting, actually. So did the Prime Minister get reimbursed, or is his funds down the drain, it appears, just like both funds? In another point to what was said, the attorney is saying he's entitled to demand the government does something about it. That's a normal citizen response. He's entitled to say anything he wants to say. Doesn't mean the government has to do anything. The government doesn't own the entity. The government oversees the entity. But the government actually, as we see a lot of times, has responsibility to make sure clients' funds are protected for entity which it provides license for. And last but not least, he mentioned, the attorney, that the DPP is ready to go to trial. So here's the question you ask yourself when they say the DPP is ready to go to trial, which is this: is the trial just for the one person who's been charged? If there's leakage about the fact that money never got to SSL in the first place, so it left wherever it was in Bolt environment, got transferred, but never got to its destination where it was meant to go, then in that instance, are they going to pursue those individuals if they're leaking information to news outlets? How can the DP be ready to go to trial when that has not been resolved? So I'm kind of confused when it comes to that. But the DPP in Jamaica is an interesting one, actually. So then we had this. So now we start having the shenanigans and the public situation and the politics come in play, because, as you know, the election is this year. And if you breathe anything which suggests that you're aligned with any one party, even though it may not be meant to be the case, then you're going to get some flack. So Jamaica Labour Party member, Venetia Phillips, asked a series of questions on social media concerning Bolt's lost money. She said, she quoted Bolt's what comment that Bolt made on this Monday, that his interview on the Fix podcast would not be edited because he had said certain things on it. And where they quizzed him on whether he had taken legal action against some who manages financial affairs. Her question to him was, did you get advice or directive from government, directly or indirectly, regarding the investments you made and then lost? So what she's saying is, you say the government should do something. Did you engage the government before you make the decision? Interesting question by a person in Parliament, actually. And our second question was it all privately done? Have you sued the person who managed your affairs? These questions, if answered, will give us here perspective. What she said, she's now PNP councillor. I think she was a PNP councillor, now turned JLP councillor. And Bolt's response was, you're trying to victim shame me. Don't be a syndicate, whatever that means. Now, I will say this, a couple of things, which is, I think when you're a member of Parliament, you have to be very, very careful. Jamaica members of Parliament, they have no sense of responsibility. They have no sense of perceptiveness. Not all of them, a number of them. They will say things which are so outrageous to draw attention to themselves, to satisfy their base. It's ridiculous. Why are you getting involved in this? A citizen can say, you know what? It's a government-regulated entity. They should do something about it, especially a citizen who's a legend. Why are you taking this up? You want the flack, or you want to give flack? Because Bolt has gotten flack when he said the government should do something about it, That's how politics in Jamaica are. They're extremely sensitive. They're extremely unaware, or they're very aware is one of the two. Why are you going to get involved in this? Leave it alone. Not because you're in the PMP, so the government do something about it, and you guys have been in power forever. Is a citizen who lost money and is upset, they're going to ask the question. It's an organization which is overseen by the government and provide governance, they're going to ask the question, where was the government? Because you oversee the organization, you grant them a license. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I went with them, because they're government-controlled entity, or not controlled, but government entity that government provides oversight. I don't want to use the word controlled, because it's controlled by the people who are president. Here's what I don't hear, though. I don't hear anything about the president for the organization, the vice president, the CFO, the head of treasury. Where are all these people that run that company? They just melt away in the night? Where the hell are they? I don't hear anybody talking about these individuals. I hear about Bolt and this one lady, right? I don't hear about anybody else. I don't hear anybody doing real digging and says, okay, let's think about this holistically. What is there, what was done, what should have been done. We don't have a lot of the information, but the thought process just eludes me. Seriously. Now, how did the fraud work? They're saying is Gina and Panton confessed to falsifying investment records. Over 200 individuals lost funds. Because we keep talking about Bolt, but there are other people who have less resources, who have lost their money, who no one is giving any visibility to, or we don't know who they are. Prime Minister is probably one of them. Because SSL has failed to safeguard investments. It's really sad, actually. Right? It's really sad. Oh, someone says he's migrated to Canada. Not surprising. How come all these people in Jamaica can commit these financial crimes and have no repercussions? I'm flabbergasted. No matter what you want to say about the US, when people commit crime, they go to jail, except one person, right? And you may get part if you go to jail if you're lying with the person. But it's amazing how we allow that to occur. You know why? Because the elites in Jamaica, they have a small circle of them. They're all friends. They're all connected. They all link. And they protect each other. And that's why you can see somebody can allegedly defalcate funds before COVID. You know what I'm talking about? Allegedly, or use funds for unintended purposes. And the case had been out there before COVID. We are in 2025. This was done in January 23. We're in 2025. I just mentioned on my last podcast talking about Adams. The case was brought up in July for Menendez. He's been convicted already. July 24. Adams was charged in September. He just got sort of pardoned. But this case ain't gonna take no 2 and 3 and 4 years. All these people seem to be friends and protect each other. And when other people get put out, they have a problem with you saying the government should do something. I don't understand that. Now, I would say something though, which is this. If it's your money that you're investing, you're responsible to do your due diligence. And if you don't know how to do it, get people to do it for you. Costs money. And by the way, I've been on both sides of due diligence. I have done due diligence in terms of assessing the adequacy of the organization for us to do business with. And I've been on the other side where people have come in and done due diligence, and I have to sit at the table and answer a bunch of questions, given the role I played. So I'm very familiar with this process. So what client, it's very difficult for an individual to do some of this. It's more of corporations, but large family offices, which are individual with a lot of money, they do have teams who do this. Now, in terms of governmental and regulatory failures, the FFC failed to regulate SSL, and it was known, actually, that they had issues. Government oversight was weak, right? And red flags ignored for years. That's what his attorney talked about, which is people know things were going wrong, people know things were wrong, and nothing was done. But I'll say to the attorney is this. If you did you know things were wrong? And why didn't Bolt take his money out? Did you know things weren't going right? Did anybody do due diligence? Did your office, who's managing Bolt's money, do the basic check to see? So basic check is, do they have any compliance issues, regulatory issues? Do they have any fraud? Do they have anything with the regulators? Are they have things out there to say they're not managing client money? Are there complaints? There's some basic stuff about than the more comprehensive assessment of the company and its ability to manage your money in a secure environment. Right? And the FSC is the organization that oversees all the financial services industry in Jamaica. But there are red flags there. Why didn't no one notice it? Why didn't no one bring up the bear? And it reminds me of something which I find interesting. You remember I did a show on the Integrity Commission, a follow-up show about the Prime Minister and him building some apartments over in Beverly Hills. And his apartments had certain configuration and certain specs and certain architectural design and drawings. And the fact that in those drawings, it says exactly what the construction should be. And what happened was there were 2 inspections done by the oversight authorities of those buildings, and they found nothing. And yet, when Integrity Commission sent out their auditors to look at this, they found all these things. Inappropriate bathroom, walls up should be there, extra rooms. It's not that the people who did the audits don't know what they're doing. The other things seem to be at play. It has to be other things at play. Basic audit stuff, which a 5-year-old could figure out and identify. Because you take the specs and you check the specs to what was done, and he said this doesn't align. And they say, oh, we didn't see it. And they have these people still have jobs. Amazing. Doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I did a quick comparison between Bernie Madoff fraud and this fraud. There's really no comparison, but I was doing it for my own purposes. So Bernie Madoff, which was an individual who conducted one of the largest frauds in U.S. history, it was $65 billion. There were over 37,000 investors there. He said the fraud started in the 90s. People think it was before the 90s. So they say it was like from the 70s, 40 years. His was a Ponzi scheme, though. It's a different fraud. So his fraud was, I get money in, and here's it. I get money in. I tell you I give you a certain return on your investment, but it's a Ponzi scheme. So the new money comes in, gets to pay off the old investors. But after I have new money coming in, or so I'm in trouble, right? And that's how we got in trouble. So when new money coming in, I'll pay New Wave, I'll pay Tripoli. You guys are in the chat, so I'm just mentioning your name. But I'm going to give you a return on your investment. And these returns were normally double digit, regardless of the market environment. Now, here's some basic fundamental market information. Nobody going to have returns double digit every year for 40 years. Ain't happening. They ain't that good. Markets go adversely. In fact, if you look at history of investing, there are certain periods where they probably can count the number on 2 hands where the market really go up significantly for you to make that money and have that consistency. So it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not happening. So, and there are a lot of people. I had a list of organizations who were affected by the Bernie Madoff fraud. The biggest one was Fairfield Greenwich Advisors. So investment advisor who invest other people's money. And they have what they call this manager of managers. So if I get some money in, I may give my money to Merrill Lynch. No, not Merrill Lynch anymore. They're gone. To Goldman Sachs. I may give my money to Morgan Stanley. I may give my money to Greenwich Capital to manage the money for me. I'm sort of overseeing that money, right? They farmed out $7.5 billion to Bernie Madoff of the $65 billion. So you know they lost a lot of people money because it's not their money. A lot of people money. A lot of the owners' money too. And there's a lot here because I have the list. Bank of Santander, $2.8 billion. Tremont Group Holdings, $3 billion. Bank Medici, $2 billion. I didn't know some of these companies. I know even the owners of the Mets got squeezed for a lot of millions of dollars. So it was both individual and institution that lost a lot of money. I'm gonna give you a story. So when I used to work in financial services, when these big fraud occur, and we have a bunch of them, UBS, Allied Bank, there were a ton of fraud that these occur, right? A lot of them on the trading desk. We would do what we call a post-mortem. So we would say, okay, this fraud occurred, and it's a quick post-mortem too. Let's go find out if our company is susceptible to a similar type of fraud. And we would do analysis to say, okay, what's the root cause for the fraud? Because some people do symptom and the symptom don't tell you anything. Why did the fraud occur? And we do analysis. We do a lot of data mining, a lot of assessment. So I went to our people because we had what we call a manager of managed strategy, which means we also gave up money to other firms to manage because the client may want that. Because we were an investment bank and we also manage money. And I used to cover the group that managed money. And we would manage your money internally. But if a client says, you know what? I want the best of all worlds. You don't have this in your portfolio. You don't have that. Let's go out and get that. So we would look at what companies were doing well, what performance was well, and we'd allocate the money. So you give me $1 billion. I may give 100 million. I may manage 500 million. We give 100 to Morgan Stanley, 100 million to Citi, 100 million to BlackRock, 100 million to Blackstone. I distribute the money. I went to our guys who did that due diligence, and I said to them, did we have exposure to Bernie Madoff? No. Why didn't we have exposure to them? They're like, well, we spent a lot of time reviewing Bernie Madoff. But we could never figure out, and he could never clearly explain how he had double-digit returns for all these years. And we got very, very uncomfortable, and we didn't invest a dime with him. Now, this wasn't the same for other lot of big banks, because they did invest with him. But our due diligence, and I used to oversee some of it. I used to review the questionnaire they have that they go out and ask people. So when I have this discussion on these topics on this channel and people pushing back on me, I'm laughing. I used to review it. I would say, okay, show me a questionnaire. You're missing this. You're missing this. This should be included. I would audit their questionnaire. I would audit the due diligence process, audit what they do, the documentation they have, what they memorize on paper, what they do or didn't do. I used to do a lot of that assessment to make sure that it was airtight, right? And so I smiled when we didn't get burned by this and we weren't in the news because we had a good due diligence process. I also used to be on the other side when people come in to do due diligence, and I would say to myself, why aren't they asking me XYZ? Because I used to be the auditor. Why are you asking me A, B, and C? I would just say to myself, not to them. And I would look at it and see which people were good at doing due diligence and which were not. Because sometimes we would get involved. They want the auditors there. They want to make sure they're comfortable with what we're doing. They want to make sure their money is protected. But I digress to say that even as individual who may have a lot of money, you have to do your own due diligence to get comfortable with the organization before you invest your money. Especially if it's not a regular bank where retail customers are, because government ain't they're not bailing out any investment company. They will bail out banks because it's mom and pop. They ain't bailing out the big boys who can afford to take the loss. So you got to be very careful. Now, in this case for SSL, it was embezzlement. So somebody stole the money. And they say it's just her. It was going for a 10-year period. Over 200 people got affected, and it was 30 million US. I will just say this before I move on. I find it hard to believe one individual committed this crime, one individual committed this fraud, and she owns it. And the question is, she may have done something, but it may be a larger fraud, and she don't realize that what she did was just a small portion of it, not the larger portion. I'm trying to figure out how this worked and how one person could do this for 10 years and no one notices. And also, how come bold people ain't noticed? Now, people are saying she prepared statements and she intercepted statements. We're going to get to that, people. First of all, and sometimes this is a large organization, and I'll get to that. There is something called segregation of duties, where people can't do what we call conflicting functions. You can't prepare my statement, you can't record my transaction, and you're also moving the money. Because then you control everything, right? And that's why sometimes people have what they call vacation policy and a mandatory vacation, because they want you to leave the job for like 2 weeks so somebody can do the role. That's where you found things anyway. But I digress a little bit. Let me keep going. So why is it taking so long? Initially, we heard Nigel Clark before he left is going to bring in the FBI to do all this. Subsequently, you hear them mention, the lawyer mentioned Thompson, who came in to do some of the work and what he said. Then they brought in Kroll, which is an international forensic firm, and forensic people just do audit for fraud and embezzlement and things of that nature. Came in and they're doing the audit, which the lawyer say was completed. I haven't seen where it's completed yet. But there's no clear pathway for Bolt to get back his money. A lot of people who lost money in the Madoff scandal got some cents on the dollar. They didn't get back all their money. I think they recovered like $4 billion. Because think about it. You're paying out over the years, and it keeps building up. You're paying out Madoff at like 10-15% return every year. Half the money's gone. And if you don't get, and why Madoff failed is because it could have continued, until Madoff died, The reason why it failed, because when you had a financial crisis, they have what you call a run redemption, which is I take my money out. They could normally call that a run in the bank. Everybody came to get their money out because people were nervous when the financial crisis occurred. You ain't had no money because you ain't get no new money in. You stop at a point in time. That's how his scheme got identified. And some guy was involved in identifying the scheme. But if they didn't have the financial crisis, Madoff would probably die and nobody realized it afterwards. As I indicated here, there have been some leakage to the press, as his lawyer mentioned, that some of Bolt's missing funds were not transferred to SSL, and that's being disputed by the attorney. But then it's being leaked to the media that is occurring. So this is going to be an interesting part of this. This makes it very juicy, people. People, please hit the like button If you like you know what? If you don't like this stream, you don't like what I'm talking about, you ain't gotta hit the like button. If you like it, hit the like button. I indicated here there's no official communication on the results of the investigation because I don't hear he says it's done. I haven't heard any official communication, so I can't say the investigation is done. So here's the question I'm asking: could a low-level employee really do this alone? She was a long-term employee. She was there for a while. These are the individuals who normally commit these crimes. Not necessarily low level. It's normally collusion where this thing occur. And collusion means I'm working with another person, or multiple people to do this. But you have to do a lot of stuff to do this for 10 years now, people. Right? And the question is, how long was it done for Bolt? And where's the people who are managing Bolt's money? It's very interesting, actually. Very interesting. Here's a $1 million question. I'm going to drink some water before I ask the question. Sorry, people. You know, I have to take my water thing. The $1 million question is, did the executives in SSL know about this? Because here's the thing you got to know about brokerage firms. And this is a brokerage arm. So they're an investment advisor. But the trade on the stock exchange, you have to be a brokerage firm subject to some other level of governance and certain requirements. In a brokerage environment, your account has to be what they call segregated. You can't commingle client money with the company money. It has to be segregated. The auditors for the FSC, the government entity, should have been going there looking at the accounts to make sure, you know what? They're segregating money. And they got to report into the regulators like they do in the US. Every year, those client money has to be reported in. How much client money there is, XYZ. The bank account has to say labeled client money account, right? So they can't just commingle people's money. And so that 200 clients with 30 million, where was that money reflected? Right? So the point is, I'm gonna say this in Jamaican term. I know she alone know. Other people know, in my view. Right? Well, it's not even watching the bank balance. The thing is, there are procedures and standards that needs to be followed, and the regulators should be helped to uphold this, especially when the company had issues. So I would say there's negligence in everybody's part, on both people's part, on the government's part, and there's fraud, obviously, on SSL part. If they blame it on one person. And if they say the person migrated to Canada, it says a lot. So Kroll is doing the investigation, leakage to the press, no official communication. I think I mentioned this before. Can this type of fraud be prevented? Yes and no. So what I mean, yes and no? You can prevent some of these fraud in a certain respects, but if somebody is hell-bent on doing the fraud, they can do the fraud, but you can make it much, much, much more harder for them to do the fraud. And if they do the fraud, they get identified quickly. Because we're talking about Murdoch was 40 years, she was 10 years. It shouldn't take that long to discover the fraud. A lot of these are more detective measures because there's a preventative measure. What is the company doing to make sure this is all about, and this is normally what's out there in the environment, so I put that here, but here's my own view, which is stronger financial regulation is important. So the FSC got to do a better job. Independent audits, you got to make sure who is auditing the organization. When you do your due diligence, it can't be some, I'm going to use a colloquial term, rinky-dink firm. It has to be a firm who can have something to lose, actually. And the people who are doing the investing, like Bolt and his people, have to be educated about what they need to look for in the due diligence process. They have to be educated and know what they need to look for. But I'll walk you through as a quick schedule of how I think you got to think about the due diligence process. So in conclusion, Bolt's case remains unsolved. Jamaican financial system is challenged. There's call for urgent reform. So before you go, let me just say this. A couple more things. I did put together a due diligence questionnaire, which I'm going to try to pull up. I'm going to take this one down. So, by the way, if you want to call in right now, because I can wait for the questionnaire and make a couple comments, we can do that. But I will pull up the questionnaire and walk you through what due diligence look like. And this is for the person who always challenged me that I think I know a lot about audit more than some FIFA auditors. So let me just show you what a due diligence questionnaire look like and what you should be doing when you're asking questions, when you're going to invest your money. Now, the regular man on the street don't have the resources or have the time to even do this. But there's some basic aspect of this they can do. So let me try to pull this up. I might say enter the stage. I'm gonna try to find it, people, and then pull it up. Because I find it really interesting that both people were not as sophisticated. It doesn't appear to be as sophisticated as I think they probably should have been. It's a little bit interesting, actually. I am trying to find what I did with this. All right, let me just do it this way then. I have it someplace. I do it the whole normal, rough way, I call it, of showing you this on the slide. Let me share my screen. So, and I didn't have enough time to go through this and make this more presentable because I was rushing to get this done. But it is what I call a due diligence questionnaire. So I put this together today to talk through what you normally look for when you go in to do your assessment of a company, right? So it's an investment advisor, which is an organization which is normally overseen by some regulator. In the US, it comes under the 40 Act, Investment Company Act of 1940, overseen by the SEC, and they will look at the organization. There are a lot of them in the US who sort of provide investment advice or manage people money. So there's an Advisors Act of 1940, there's a Investment Company Act. One covers the product itself or the vehicle, and one covers the organization that provides investment advice. So, I don't know why my thing is showing this. So let me go through this. So first here, so I didn't want to show it this way, in presentation mode. So this is just the cover. Let me just go through this quickly. So here's the overview. When you're assessing investment advisor, so consider SSL to be the investment advisor, even though they're a combination of an investment advisor and a broker-dealer, two separate distinct entity, but they're managing people's money. So in that capacity, they're an investment manager, right? You have to look at, do they have compliance, good compliance? Do they have good controls? Do they have good risk management? Do they have good governance? Probably we should start with governance first, and then go through to risk management, internal controls, and compliance. And we'll talk about each of these. So what are the key areas of due diligence? General information, right? Who is the company? What are the people involved in the company? Are they organized? Are they incorporated? Basic fundamental information. Then you look at regulatory and compliance oversight. Who regulates them? In the US is the SEC and FINRA. FINRA does like broker-dealer, sort of self-regulated organization, Securities and Exchange Commission, or CFTC that covers things like commodities. The Fed covers bank. The FCA in the UK covers most of the financial services. They have two organizations in the UK. FCA is one. There are two parts to the FCA that covers it. It's FSC here, not FinSac for Jamaica. FinSac was the previous organization that sort of helped with the after they had the financial crisis in Jamaica. But here it should have been FSC instead of FinSac. You're looking for, so you got to make sure they're regulated. Who's covering them? In Tokyo, for example, or in Japan, the FSA, the financial authority, is in Japan. Every country, Brazil have their own regulators. Every country have their regulators, right? There's a history of regulator fines or violations. So you look at the company, says, when I look at the company, do they have a history of fines? Do they have a history of violating regulation? Do they have a lot of complaints? Because in the US, for example, you get complaints, FINRA get complaints, you have to address those complaints. You have a certain time to get back to them, right? And if you did something wrong, they bar you from the industry. Do they have like AML type of policies? These are just examples. So do they have policies in place about how they protect your account? Privacy, access to the account. Do they protect your money? Do they have any anti-money laundering policies and procedures in place? Sort of fundamental thing that inform from regulatory governance and compliance oversight what they have in place. And do they have a compliance team, which is different from an audit team? Compliance team mainly focus on regulations and policies. Audit sort of covers everything in the organization. So I'm going through this quickly, people. Fundamental, and this is where it comes in for SSL. Do they have segregation of duties? Meaning, I'm going to say this word, which I talk about a lot. Can you do conflicting roles? You can't manage the money. You can't control the statements. You can't record the transactions, and you can't move the money all at the same time. Then you control everything. Then if you do something wrong, nobody can notice it. So here I have portfolio manager and investment advisors, which are people who manage the money. The advisors give you a financial advice. The portfolio manager is the one who take the money, determine where you need to invest the money. They should not have access to move your money. There's separate roles for people who do reconciliation. So I'm going to reconcile between the bank who have my money and the organization. Separate people do the reconciliation from those who can do a lot of other functions, which is deemed to be not complementary, which is deemed to be conflicting. And it's not conflict in the traditional sense, like we've talked about. It's conflict in terms of the roles I perform would allow me certain access and to move money without being noticed. And then does the company have, so this is when you go and you do the assessment, you're looking at what the company has. You're sitting down and talking to their people, looking at their policies, their processes to see what they have in place to know they can protect your money. Do you have background checks on the employees? And do you have things in place to prevent fraud from occurring? I'm not going to spend a ton of time. I'm just going to do this quickly. There's internal audit and governance, which is what I was part of, which is, do you have an independent audit department? Who does the audit department report into? Because you want to make sure the reporting line is independent and they're not being influenced or prevented from doing their duties in a way which is independent from management. You can't just have them reporting to the CEO, because you have some companies do, more private companies. Bigger public companies, they report to the audit committee, who's independent from management. And what's the audit process? What's their methodology? What's their process? What do they cover when they do the audits? Are they restricted from doing audits in any given area? Does the president prevent them from doing audits in certain areas, or PMs, the portfolio manager prevent them from doing audits in certain areas? They have to have carte blanche access to everything in the organization that they need to look at. And when they find issues, how do the issues get resolved? And I can tell you, people, I've said this before on this channel, which is this. If you have been an auditor, because I used to do external audit, work for a public accounting firm, and internal audit. If you have been an internal auditor and got to a certain level, and you haven't had a situation where you either have to leave the company or you have had the most difficult situations where you may have to leave, you leave, or you may have to leave, or contentious situation with senior people, then you haven't done a good job. It's the nature of the role. So there's also external audit, which is independent firms who come to do audit. So do they have independent firms? The question is, who is the independent firm doing the audit? Do they have a reputation? Are they one of the big four firms? Or even a Grant Thornton? Or they have some small mom and pop firm, which is what Madoff had, who can be easily influenced or who don't know what they're doing? Right? Auditors should going to review the financial statements and the process you have in place to make sure things are done the right way. So internal audit and external audit are different. Internal audit is more about process, policies, procedures, adherence. External audit is probably more about the books and the numbers. Even though internal audit will do both, external audit is mainly focused on all the financial numbers. Do they appear reasonable? They look at controls, not at the same depth as the internal auditors. You also look at, not only do you look at the controls they have in place, you look at how they're going to invest your money. Do they have restrictions on how they can invest your money? Where they can invest it? And they have something they call your risk tolerance. So what's my risk tolerance? I may be very aggressive. So buy the most aggressive stocks out there. Don't buy any big companies like Microsoft. Buy some small cap stocks where, you know what? I know the upside is huge, or international stocks. I may be very aggressive about how and buy technology stocks because I'm aggressive. I may be very conservative. Buy me the big companies like the Apples of the world and the Pepsis. And by the way, put some money in bonds because you have to diversify your portfolio. I don't want to be overly weighted in equity. So I don't want, if I have $100, 90% in equity. I may want 40 in equity, 40 in fixed income, and 20 in some alternative. Right? That's maybe what my portfolio should look like. I don't want to be overly aggressive. So your risk tolerance about what you want to undertake, that's part of your assessment of the company. Say, you know what? Do they have process in place to make sure my money is invested based on my risk tolerance? Then obviously there's fees and transparency. These are all the things you look at now, people. You're looking at these when you're going in. This is part of your due diligence. Fees and transparency. What's the fee structure? How do people get paid? Are they over incentivized to do certain things inappropriately? Do they have hidden charges which I'm not going to know about, which hit my account? I don't know about those accounts. Conflict of interest management and disclosure. You hear me talk about conflict of interest all the time. It's inherent in process. Is the PM who manages my portfolio, is he or she conflicted where they're going to make decisions on their behalf versus making on my behalf. I'll give you an example of conflict. Say you're an investment bank or asset manager. I give you $100,000 to manage. I say, put my money in the best companies to manage my money. They do investment management themselves internally. They get all the fees. They take the $100 and just put in the company that they manage versus say, you know what? Let me look across the street. How does Morgan Stanley do? How does BlackRock do? How does XYZ Capital does? And maybe allocate 20, 20, 20, 20, and I take 20 versus putting all the money so I can get all the fees. The conflict is they're getting all the fees, so therefore they have no incentive to get my money out to others. What would be best for me would be go to the best managers on the street to invest so that I can get the best return on my portfolio. Right? That's important. So that's how you manage that conflict. And my job was to look to make sure those conflicts are managed. I can tell you, I had some ridiculous conversation with like portfolio managers about how they manage money or with the organization, because what happens is you can imagine they would say, well, they came to us for us to manage their money. And I said, no, they came to you to provide investment advice, and the management, part of management is you doling out that money to other organizations so they can manage your money because they're better at managing XYZ instead of you. Now, that used to be done way back when. They have something they call an open architecture where you're sort of, I wouldn't say mandated, but you have to make sure you're careful about how you do that. And in those cases nowadays, you more likely will farm the money out to the best managers versus just doing it all by yourself. Now, if a client say, I just want your product and invest in your company, then it's a different story. Or not necessarily your company, but I want you to manage my money. I want you to manage it, buying the products that you sell. That's a different story. That's what they mandate. But if they're agnostic about this, you have to look for the best place to place their money. This is important. Custody and asset security. So is there a bank where the assets are custodied? Are those assets segregated in terms of who have access to it, who can move the money, who can't move the money? Is there fraud prevention mechanism in the company? And that's what the question you need to ask SSL. Like with SSL, I would sit down with them and go through this and say, walk me through each of these, how this is done. There is no way Panton should be able to intercept statement. First of all, where the statement being sent to Bolt them. Like Bolt and his people need to come clean with what their process was to get comfortable that Bolt money was being managed appropriately, that they did their due diligence, and also that they were following up to make sure, you know what? The money was where it said it was. They have some negligence on their part from where I said. And then when you're going to close a client portfolio, they want to no longer do business with you, there's some process you go through, right? You don't want to get overcharged for the fees. But anyway, that was what I had in terms of due diligence. It's pretty comprehensive. It's pretty extensive. The due diligence questionnaire could be even much larger, especially when going to the strategies that you employ and what those strategies may entail and how you want to dig. You can dig much deeper than this. But this is just a brief synopsis of some of the things that one would sort of go through when you're looking at this, right? And so I do think there are questions to be asked across the board, not just to the, and this is not about victim shaming, which is what someone is saying that Bolt may or may not have done. The politician says it's more about, and I heard Airport say this to, I think she said this to a female artist. I'm trying to remember the artist one time when the person lost a lot of money. And Oprah was like, you don't know where your money is? Like, really? It's your money. You're primarily responsible for your money. I don't care who's managing your money. I don't care who's managing. You need to know where your money is. It's your money. I don't care how much money you have. You can't let your money just sit out there and somebody is managing your money. You know where your money is. You're not checking on your money. Now, the SSL case is a little bit concerning because they had issues. If someone had done some basic due diligence and realized, you know what? I may not want to put my money here given all the complaints. It's like you go into Amazon, for example, and you want to buy a product, which I do all the time. And sometimes it doesn't work, but a lot of time it works, which is I read the negative comments, not the positive ones, most times. I read some positive just to get some reassurance, but I want to read exactly why the person was upset. If they're upset because the product came and something was missing, this and that, but I want to read the product, how the product actually worked, the quality of it, before I go buy that Amazon product. I'm reading in detail the negative comments or criticism, or what you want to call it, because I want to know what was the situation that made the person so perturbed. Even when I see a 90% rating, because sometimes I buy Amazon product with 90% rating and it's crap. I want to read the negative things and say, yeah, this, I don't like how this sounds. I'm not buying it, right? And DC said, Oprah also says, sign your own checks. Of course, it's your money. And I don't get the sense that this is my interpretation. This is not shaming Bolt. I don't get the sense he had control over all of his money. I don't get the sense he knew where all his money was. That's why I asked the question at the outset, which is, did he know where all his money is and how much money he had with the organization? Because sometimes you're out there, you're busy, you're working, you're having fun, you're making money, you trust people. We had a term when I first went to audit years ago. Trust but verify. You know what the term is now? Just verify. Don't trust nobody. It used to be trust but verify. Stop with the trust nonsense. Just verify. Let me check and make sure it works. I ain't going to the trust business with you. I'm not a trust. Trust is an organization or an entity where you put money in and you may have an irrevocable trust or revocable trust. We're not doing any trust. We're just going to verify to make sure things are what they're supposed to are, what they are. Most people say Bolt and his people will not be transparent in this process. Trust me. Yeah, I think they both need to challenge these people, because who did the due diligence on SSL? Did the money really move? Because if things are being leaked, people, he mentioned that Thompson did the due diligence way back when and found some things. You brought an international firm, and this is not a hard audit. It's not a hard audit. Why? At least some aspect is not hard. If the money's been done through banking entities, then you should have history in those entities of how the money moved. Here's the question. If she took 30 million, what should she do with the 30 million? I said it again. If she took 30 million, what should she do with 30 million? What she buy? Did she buy a car? Did she buy a house? Did she buy clothes? Did she buy land? What should she do with the 30 million? 200 accounts. 30 million. Both is between 6 and 12 million. What should you do with 30 million? Because even though in Madoff case, we know what happened in Madoff case, right? Madoff case was a Ponzi scheme. You can understand where Madoff money went, especially when you're paying 10, 12, 15% to everyone every year. That money going to be 65 billion going to be running off. But it still recovered 4 billion from Madoff. I haven't heard him say recover any money from Panton. She took 30 million. Hey, 30 million enough money in Jamaica, you know? Tax-free money. Tax-free money, people. You know something? And even though I'm in this field, I check my account every single... Where my money, what little money I have, I know the organization my money is are with. I know how much they're insured for. And whenever I had my old company, I check my account. Even though I used to audit them, I know what they do. I know what the controls are. I check my money every... I don't have enough money for people to sign my check. Anyway, but every single day, I check my little account I have. Every day. Every single day I was check. What is my bank account? And I have multiple bank accounts, or where I have some investment every single day. Not day I go buy me a check to make sure it's still there. Because you know, between cyber situation now, you never know, your money can just get moved and wipe out the books, so you gotta check. It's even more to check nowadays than before because of technology and cyber and all those things. Right? And make sure I make some mistake and you can recover quickly. Because time of the essence. I was at a company I used to work for in the UK. And what the fraudsters do is they would pick holiday season to do their fraud, right? They pick time around Christmas, and they know there's a lot of pressure. And we had one fraud which occurred, which is, I won't go to the details of the fraud, but just like say they pick a perfect time to pressure some client, the junks, you the staff, by the way, who then had the manager. There were a client who were very aggressive. That's what they put the thing they put up. Client was aggressive. And at the end of the day, we moved, what was it, like $6 million that went out of the company? The fraud was found almost next day. The money was gone. Went to China someplace. Gone. I think we recovered a little bit. And was the bank who noticed it? No, we didn't notice it. And we had very good controls in place. But somebody made a decision to move money when they shouldn't have, because they got tricked, right? And if you read and if you read through this thing, because I did the assessment, if you read through the email, you could see a little bit, because you know those processors sometimes can't spell, right? Now they're going to use AI, so it's a lot more difficult accurately. So you used to identify fraud by the misspelled word, or they're not English, not their first language. Now they're going to use AI. It's going to be much more difficult. So you have to be very vigilant. Bless up, Crystal. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me. By the way, people, if you haven't done so, go subscribe to Crystal channel. It's Talawa TV. But no, the fraud is pervasive. And I'm not going to say it's a Jamaica thing. It's not. Fraud happens everywhere. The difference with Jamaica is this, is that the people who commit the fraud sometimes, they get away with it. Or you get put off and put out of people's consciousness, and people just move on with their lives. They move on with their lives. They're just like, we have short attention span nowadays. And they use that to their advantage. Right? So the crime gets committed, people get up in arms and lose their mind. It goes on for a while, and it dissipates over time, and it fizzles out. Look at the situation with the person, what's his name, Reed, who allegedly took funds and fixed the JC track. That's been what, 2019, 2020, somewhere around there? Ain't nothing happened. And this prosecutor don't have in Jamaica. Lord have mercy. She be prosecutor herself. Sorry, me have to say that. I don't love Sue, because, by the way, I didn't play a tape I was going to play where the lawyer was talking about, the one I played before where the politician made some statement about Bolt and what he should have done about the government and get involved. He said when he assessed it, there may be some defamation thing in there. I don't love Sue at Jamaica with defamation. Since them drop the defamation law, that's all no one do a sue the defamation. People can't say nothing nowadays, no shut them up. So when they commit no crime, them, no found no commit no crime, them, especially the one in the elite, and people say something, because they don't use the word allegedly, and they want to sue them, and them have to go pay it, because the court support them. Got defamation laws. Jesus. Guys, they abuse the privilege. I have never seen a country where people in position of power commit atrocities, fraud, and then it fizzles. They don't go jail. They don't go jail. Yeah, no, I hear it. But no, must win. People have to talk and must win. We can't just don't tie it down and say nothing, Have to call out the people. Jamaica need to change. Jamaica need to change. It needs to change. It needs to change. This can't be a continuous people. You can't keep having these things occur and it's not being addressed. Or you get pushed off. Or you get pointed on the line. The prosecutor not doing her job the way she should. I'm going to call her out. She's not doing her job the way she should. These things shouldn't take no 2 years. First of all, let me tell you guys how this works. Because I've done this in public when I was in public accounting and others. It's when you find a fraud like that, and I used to hate being on those jobs, your life is basically over for like 3, 4, 5 months. Over. It's nonstop. It's like 24/7 you're doing the audit. Because they got to get it done, get it buttoned up, get it right. You got to get it done, write the report, issue the report. What needs to be done, get done. Ain't nobody going home and sleep. No, you're working on 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a days. You're working 15-hour days. You still in Jamaica, we find a fraud and we say, you know what? I'm still doing 2 hour day and 3 hour day thing, man. Nah, fuss up myself. Money gone already. Ain't nobody, the crow coming in, these audits ain't putting on 2 and 3 years. They ain't supposed to be taking 2 years to figure out what happened to the money in SSL. It ain't that complex, people. It's their bank transactions. Now, looking at what Panton did with the money, because allegedly she's being charged, or allegedly she's the one committing the crime, then it may take some time to figure out what she did with the money, right? How she moved the money. But there's no way I believe there's no collusion involved. And collusion means you have more than one person working together. Whether it's people in the banks, other people in SSL, she may take the fall for it. She may go to jail for it if she's charged and she's convicted, if she actually did it, because they say she confessed to doing it. But there's no way you can tell me that she is the sole person who perpetrated this fraud and got away with it for 10 years. It ain't happening. You can take no vacation. Somebody go do the role and somebody can identify, something is missing here. 10 years she didn't take no vacation. 10 years she putting together statements, which are probably more manual than more automated now, and send them out to all the parties involved. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes there's culpability and obligation on the client's part, because I've seen where clients sometimes identify these things and come back to us and say, this is wrong in my statement. Or sometimes clients have no idea what's in their account. You just sit down there. They have money here, there, and everywhere. They don't spend time to check their account. So sometimes the clients are culpable because they're not spending time making sure that their accounts are okay. Don't tell anybody Mr. Bolt's a culpable. No. I'm basically saying I think both people could have done a better job, frankly, from where I sit, in terms of where his money, in terms of one, who he put his money with. Because I know that's what the politician said, and people are killing her about it. But I don't think he can't say the government should do something about it. They should do something about it. Yes, CC, you can call in. The number is up there. I'm done doing soliloquy. You can call in CC. Curious to hear your view. You live at Jamaican, so my way I say. You can't hide. And by the way, CC is also an accountant, so we'd love to get his perspective on this. Come, CC, ring the phone. We'd love to get CC's perspective on this because he's also an accountant. So it should be right up his wheelhouse. Right up his wheelhouse. But no, I mean, I think their culpability go across the board. There's degrees of culpability, though. SSL is morally culpable. They should have better controls in place. The government is very culpable because they should have made sure they had the right controls in place. The external auditors are culpable because they should have made sure that the client funds were segregated and the monies they had in what accounts were in the accounts they should be. Because what are you doing to people? You send confirmation to the banks, you know. That's a basic audit steps. You get independent confirmation from the banks about what monies are in the account. Now, for client accounts, as I said, they should be segregated. Yeah, I just saw the ASAP Rocky thing, Bert. He knew he was going to get off. That's why he took the charge. He didn't take the plea deal. So I want to hear what ECC call in to hear what. Yes, I want to hear a Jamaican accountant perspective on this. That'd be a good one, actually. I'm talking from my up in the sky chair, and I would love to get somebody on the ground who knows how things actually work on the island. Since I don't think I have that insight, I'm using it from a more, sometimes even more theoretical perspective as to, well, practical, what I've seen, but this is a more industrialized world environment. Reality may be a little bit different in Jamaica, so I would love to get CC's view. But it's very disappointing. I don't think Bolt deserve this. But it's a lesson learned, right? It's a hard lesson to learn, by the way. Very hard lesson to learn. You hear a lot of times where athletes' money get defalcated because they trust their investment advisor. I'm not saying that's the case here because his lawyer is basically saying, inferring that's not the case. But I think when they're going to publish a report, just like Integrity Commission did, and the report will detail out the whole thing, because Kroll has to do that. It should have been done already. It shouldn't take 2 years, people. Sorry. It shouldn't take more than a year. Not even that long. Maybe they went to the FBI first and then probably stop and go. I'd assume that's what happened. They went locally first, then they went international and went national. And here's another thing I heard too, which may happen. The clients may be footing the bill for Kroll, which is very expensive, people. Kroll not cheap enough. If they did a review as long as I think they did, that review may run $500,000, $1 million US. People already lost 30. I don't even know how that works. Who paid Kroll? It's a lot of money to pay Kroll. So what the money those clients were going to get, got to be digged into. The question is, should the government underwrite this? I don't think the government has an obligation to do so, even though they're the ones with the oversight. In a lot of countries, clients don't get reimbursed. Yeah, but as I said before, Bernie Madoff thing went on for 40 years, or maybe a little bit less. So these things occur. And Madoff had the who. You'd be surprised how many people. Some people were so embarrassed by Madoff, they couldn't even show their face. They lost millions and millions. We're talking about individuals. Look at the Mets or the people who own the Mets, the Mets baseball team. They lost millions and millions from the Bernie Madoff situation. Right? Some companies lost billions. So Bank Santander lost $2 billion. So it does happen. No matter how sophisticated you think you are, it can happen. But I think for SSL, who had problems before, the due diligence should have been better. And first of all, you want to make sure that one is when you invest in an organization, will the government cover your money? First of all, if the government don't cover your money, like they do with FDIC, for example, does the company have enough resources if something goes wrong to cover your money or cover some of your money? And as I said before, the client money should have been segregated. CC, are you calling in or not? You asked me, you calling in. I said, yes, I don't hear from you. Or you change your mind. Let me know. Let me know, Mr. CC, because I would love to hear from somebody in Jamaica who's in that industry, who have better insight than I do, because mine is more outside looking in. I would love to get inside looking out. And by the way, if you're just in the chat, if you haven't hit the like button, well, if you like it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, now guys, hit the like button. If you love the discussion, please hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. So you calling in CC or not? You said yes, but I'm not hear your phone ring. You call the number? The number's on the screen, you know. And it's a WhatsApp number too. This is not like some of the people program where at Jamaica, me call the number and them hang up on you because they probably can't take the call. You come like how I do here. Good night, sir. Good night. How you doing?
Yeah, good night. Good night. I was trying to find one of those machines that could distort your voice. You know, on a serious note though, you know, there would have been periodical audits by several other entities with this entity, right? In terms of to ensure that they're going the straight and narrow. My thing about it is Cranky, is this. There was a situation, I think in 2013, there was some audit, and like they were saying, there wasn't good separation of funds and all of these things. But I am trying to figure out why weren't those published, because from my knowledge, I think they were a stock exchange company.
Yeah.
So it's a public traded entity. So
right.
For me, it is negligent on a lot of people's part. And it's sorry to say it's negligent on the person who was Bolt's investment manager, whomever he had trusted to invest the monies. Because number one, you would be looking at the company's financials. You would be looking at their balance sheet, their cash flow statement. So to see how much free cash flow they have. You would look at how liquid the company is in terms of their debt to equity ratio. All of these things goes into account before you put large sums of money into a financial institution. You would notice years ago that when they had Dial Insurance, right?
Yeah.
And because Dial Insurance didn't have proper reinsurance in place when the hurricane went and damaged properties in Cayman, properties that were worth millions of dollars, it basically sent the company bankrupt.
So wait, before you do that, explain to people then what reinsurance is.
Oh yeah, so reinsurance, gentle people, reinsurance is a form of insuring back the assets that the company. For example, let me put it like this: reinsurance is insuring your portfolio against risk in terms of losses, but it's to cover the excess in loss that the company might incur. For example, you insure a house, and they have that two type of reinsurance: treaty and facultative. So treaty reinsurance is when you take a portfolio and reinsure it. Treaty, like them have a property portfolio. So all of the properties, them look and say the book value is $1 billion, and they must say, all right, here what we will cover 700 million in the event of a flood or in the event of a catastrophe.
You know, you're complicated reinsurance, right? So reinsurance is basically this: you pass counsel the risk to another company. So if I insure SSL, for example, right? But they take no money to insure SSL. I have the contract with SSL. I may go to Allstate, say, take part of this risk, right? So I farm a part of the risk of insuring to somebody else. So multiple people know to cover the insurance, not just one company. You understand what you're saying? But I'm saying that's normally what insurance is, which is meaning, because it may be a lot for me to cover by myself, and I want to make sure I pass some of that risk to somebody else.
But here's the thing about it, something that you put it like that, Cranky, but remember you have co-insurance too, that is why I did.
Yeah, but I'm saying reinsurance is basically that.
But reinsurance is basically transferring risk to cover against the first insurance.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you're just insuring the insurance.
Right, you don't want me to pay out all by yourself. So if you look at what's the name company, the guy from Omaha, Nebraska, he's in the insurance business, right? Buffett. But they do a lot of reinsurance too. So they'll say, you know what? Okay, I gotta insure this asset. if I had to pay out $10 billion, okay, I'm gonna pass on $5 of that billion to somebody else. So just in case something happened, I only pay out $5. Somebody's pay out the other $5. But anyway, keep going.
But that only happens. It doesn't happen against motor policies.
Okay.
So for motor policies, there's no reinsurance.
Yep.
So that is why people try to mitigate. For example, if them insure a car for 30 million, they employ what is called co-insurance. Where Mr. Cranky, you're what? Me I give you 15 million and me keep 15 million. So if there's an accident, then you are responsible for half of the risk. And I'm responsible for the other half because motor doesn't carry reinsurance. So in simple, every other insurers have to get insurance annually. They go to the big insurance companies in the global market. They have Munich Re, Swiss Re, all of these things. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't want to say complicated in a Cranky because it's just transferring risk to insure against the first insurance. But in terms of the situation with SSL now, as I said before, you're investing, when you're going to invest with a company, all of those information you would want to get the auditor's report to see if it is a qualified or an unqualified opinion.
Let's be careful. You're talking about external auditor, right? Not internal auditor.
The external auditors.
Right.
So you would want to know if there's an unqualified or a qualified.
So you got to be very careful.
So an unqualified.
You got to be very careful because your audience, you're using accounting terminology. I was going to give
them what unqualified means.
Okay.
So unqualified people is going to sound contradictory, but Cranky, you're laughing, but it sounds contradictory. Unqualified basically means a clean opinion, right? It's a positive outcome. Basically, it indicates that the company's financial statements are in compliance with international financial reporting standards. So those are standards set by.
Let's just say things are okay. Things are okay. Let's put it that way. Things are okay.
Yeah, things are okay.
Yes.
So an unqualified opinion means that things are okay. You're giving you confidence of investing with these people.
Yep.
So yeah, it's basically a reinsurance of confidence to invest with these people. So when you look on it now, then you would want to know if that is it, or is an adverse opinion, right? Or it's a qualified opinion. So all of those things people would want to know if it is okay or if it is not okay, and if there are minor issues or there are
major issues. Yes. They're degrees. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so you want to know if there's major issues, minor issues, or what degree of issues are there? Are there acceptable levels of issues? Because in audit, they have acceptable audit risk, but you want to know what level of risk. So that is something that you want to know going into it. So if the auditors, because I remember there was a section, Cranky, that they were saying the auditors had given basically like a qualified opinion. So I'm thinking that why was those things not made public? Because if it's a public company, it is under the FSC and all of these things. You would think that some of these information should have been.
Here's a question, CC. So in the US, public companies have to file their financials with the SEC, which are subject to and can be reviewed by anybody. Isn't that the same in Jamaica? If you're a public company, so in the US, for example, you have to file your financial statements with the SEC, which are then subject to review by anybody who may have an interest in the company and want to look at them. And financial statements are dated. That's not the case in Jamaica, where you have to, if you're a public company. Okay.
Yeah, when you're a public company, because you're filing your statements with the FSC and you're filing your statement with the stock exchange. And then on the stock exchange, you are able to, you can go right now, Cranky, on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
And look at any company financials.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't file at a certain period of time, they will write you and you can pay a fine and all of those things. And you probably can lose. There are certain things that the stock exchange can utilize against you, and delist you and all of these things.
Right.
And if a company was listed and then they get delisted, you go and look for why. What are the reasons as to why they were delisted? And then you won't invest in a company that was delisted. So in that situation, this is similar situation. You file with the FSC, you file with all of the regulators just the same, and it is accessible to the public because, as I said, it is a publicly traded entity. It's not as as restrictive as a private entity. And a publicly traded entity has to have an external audit. a private traded entity. I think it's a 500. You have to be earning 500 million or more, if I'm not mistaken. I think revenue of 500 million or more for you to be required to do an audit.
So let's come back to this situation here. If you were to assess this, where does culpability resides?
So culpability resides with both parties. It's so in a way.
No. When you say both parties, there are a number of parties. There is.
All right. So
wait. Let me just say this. Let me say the parties. There is Bolt. There is Bolt advisors. I mean, on his side, who move his money and probably manage his assets. There is SSL. There is even in SSL management. There are the regulators. There is so those are probably the main parties who are involved. So when you say culpability resides.
So culpability resides with the main parties involved, because it resides with the regulator for even where was the information published. In terms of the regulators putting it back to the MOF, the Minister of Finance, because you have to report to the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Finance then looks at these reports annually. So for me, the culpability is going to be there on their side, right? And then the culpability is also going to be on your side personally, which is both. So there's culpability with whomever he had in charge of his investments.
Yep.
So the culpability is on that side as well, because as I stated before, Cranky, you would need to see all the Cranky, you're a businessman. You would know. You would need to see those information before you go and make such large investments.
Yeah, you're talking about millions of dollars. And say, if I'm putting $1 million someplace, so for example, I would put millions of dollars if I had it. Let me just qualify that with Chase, for example, even without doing a ton of diligence on Chase. Well, I would put millions of dollars. I'd put maybe what's the threshold now for government coverage? Whatever the number is, at 200,000, I put 199,000, right? Because I know if they go bankrupt, I'm getting my 199. But if I'm gonna put more money than that, then I'll do other due diligence to get comfortable that if they lose my money, I'm okay.
But then the next thing is that it's not like we know what the portfolio involved. Was it on fixed instruments, like fixed coupon instruments?
No, it was in Pantan. It was in Pantan's instrument.
No, but I'm seriously still. But remember, in a Cranky, out here, for example, in the commercial banking system, your money is covered up to 1.2 million, right?
Yeah. So,
up to 1.2.
Cece, I'm gonna stop you there for a second. Cece, you raise a brilliant point. So Cece's asking this question, which is interesting. His question is, what instruments were they invested in? So if they invest in stocks, did the stocks pay dividends? If they invest in fixed income, did the fixed income pay interest income? Because then those income would be coming to your portfolio, and whoever is looking at Bolt's money should be seeing that money going in based on the assets that he has under his portfolio, right? Basic stuff. If she's setting our statement, did she think through all of this? What money going to where? You know, the statements have to be sophisticated. If it's millions, for her to put together a statement which satisfy whoever is looking at it, or did anybody look at it? Do they know what they're looking at? There's so many questions to be asked. It's unbelievable.
Exactly. Because, for example, what if he was the stock? What if the funds were invested in treasury notes or government bonds?
Yep.
Government bonds where you have long-term bonds, and government bond is one of the lowest risk investments.
Yep.
It carries the lowest risk.
Yeah.
So with regards to that, your portfolio would show you how much is the coupon. Is it by annually, or is it just annually? You understand? And then people would ask, is it that 12 million? Because they said 6.2 million. But it could be 6.2 million annual interest, and then they do the compound. They do compounding interest going forward. Like I said, 6.2 times 10%. Then there's a principal plus interest. And then you go again with 10%. So that we don't know what type of instruments. That is the thing, You need to know what type of instruments. If it is stocks, Cranky, watch out. If it is stocks, right?
Yeah.
Where the stocks sold, where the stocks traded, how often were these stocks traded? Or where the stocks, as I said, dividend, where dividend being paid on the stocks, where these stocks traded over a period of time. How much stocks would you have held in certain companies, and what are the stocks now? Or every stock sold, and then they showed him that he still had stocks. For example, if you have stock in a Pepsi, but them sell the stocks, but them still sending a statement that you have 100 million units of stocks in this company, when in reality it was sold already, and the money went away. You understand me? I said,
yeah,
you sell the shares them out of the company, but you're still generating a statement to show that there are shares in the company, when in reality, on paper, it say you have shares. But really,
people, small stuff. Here's another point, people, we got to think about. There's so much that comes to your mind when you think about it. So, for example, if he has 6 million people, there's negligence that occurred on every party. If he has $6 million in the organization, right? Even for stocks, people do what they want to make sure you are managing your taxes, because tax is the key component of your managing when you have a portfolio, right? See, with sell stocks that are losing, and probably marry up them with some gains you're getting to make sure you minimize somebody's tax loss for a given year. If he's getting dividends, if he's getting income, if he's getting gain on loss, he has to file tax returns with that money. Where is that situation? How that work?
Cranky, let me tell you something about this, about the dividend, right? And this is the next thing. If he was getting dividend, he would have known, because if it is a public entity, I get dividend from stock exchange. You get something you get a letter. You get something a mail. Sorry, you get a mail with a check.
Yeah.
They don't send you bank thing.
But we can't say him, because he probably handling his own money. Somebody's handling.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying whomever was getting it.
They
would get checks.
Yes.
They would get checks, right? Checks. So it's a simple thing for say, ring up stock exchange if you have some stocks in it, and say how many checks were drawn to this company with regards to dividend, all of these things. So based on the conversation, based on what I've heard, it seems as if it was fixed instruments, and then you would have get coupon interest, which it would be rolling with the principal, and then you have compound interest. They use a compound interest rate. That's based on the information, because they're saying 6.2 million in principal, and then it's $12.9 million principal plus interest. That doesn't seem to me like it was stocks, Cranky. That seems to me like private equity and some bonds and some treasury bills.
Explain that. When we use this term, CC, we got to be very careful about our audience. You can probably about stocks and bonds versus private equity and treasury. You got to explain those. Not everybody is into finance, right? So explain the private equity piece, which is a really interesting part, actually, if there is private equity. Because I didn't know they have a lot of private equity in Jamaica, but go ahead.
So private equity is just basically, is stock in a private company that is not offered to the public, to the general public.
I would say so interest in a private company. I wouldn't use the word stock.
Yeah, interest in a private entity that is not offered to the public in a nutshell.
Yep.
So you would invest in a private entity, but it is not offered on the public trading. So there is no information. There wouldn't be necessarily readily information to the general public, because it's not offered publicly.
Right. And most companies, started out by maybe unless it's an individual-owned company, where it's private money first fund them, and then eventually they become public companies because they generate enough revenues to then go to the stock exchange, right? So if you think about any company, whether it's Google or Apple or whatever those companies are, whether it's more recent companies, they all probably were private first. Venture capitalists coming in and give them some money, which are people who have private money. They invest in the company, they build them up to a certain point, they value them, take them public. But what CC is saying is that if Bolt is investing his money in private equity money, then you ain't going to see a lot of income coming through, at least initially anyway, to then be taxable. So you have to worry about that. But go ahead, CC.
Yeah, so you see, in terms of, then you would basically put your money with SSL, and SSL is like the management company who deals with investing of your funds. So they basically are like the middleman who they go out, invest in private equity, and then over a period of time, you make money through interest payments, and they make money through management fees. And then the interest payment is added on to your principal, and it will roll over a period of time. So we don't know what the portfolio is like, but based on how it sounds, Cranky, that is where I would tip my leaning towards.
Yeah, but I mean, does SSL invest in a lot of private equity?
That's the next thing. Like, we don't know, because if we look on it, for example, there are a lot of properties that build up. There are a lot of companies that are building properties. You have $1 million properties that are being.
Yeah. So the question is, if I would know I have an interest in this property, right? If that's the case, I would know because you would get something because you send the money in, they send you back what percentage share you own in whatever assets they are, right? Or they send you what's in your portfolio and they value it because it's private equity. You have to have some independent person do the appraisal of the asset. Otherwise, you don't only know the cost you have in the asset, right? You want to know what your portfolio is. You're going to get market value and get the cost. So what's it really value in terms of if I assess it today, what's the value of it versus how much money I put in, which may change if it's a private company. I didn't hear a lot about, we haven't heard, which is a great point you bring up, CC. We haven't heard about what the investment portfolio looked like, which is what was he invested, or supposed to be invested in, because it was invested in Panton, it appears. But where was Panton supposed to put that money? He invested in Panton, it didn't work out.
But may I say it's because I'm thinking they would have a typical diversified portfolio. Diversification, people, is just meaning that you invest in some that is high risk. High risk generate greater interest.
No. CC, don't say that. Diversification is I don't put my money all in one basket. So diversification is I have $100. I may put 20% in bonds, 60% in equities, 10% in private equity, and keep 10% in cash, whatever it is. Right? That's what diversification is. Meaning, and they talk about this a lot in this industry, which is you can't put all your money in one basket because if the basket fails, you're you know what. Go ahead, CC. Sorry.
And that's the next thing to Cranky. Anybody knows you have so much money, you have to actually secure part of the money. Like you would say, 50% is in fixed coupons. Fixed is on fixed. What would I say? Fixed notes. And in terms of that certificate and deposits, fixed, where you know that 50% of your portfolio will always be on these things. So it's not really, there's great risk. You can just liquidate it, if anything, and close out that amount. But the other now 50% goes into volatile risk, where you stand a chance to make $1 million or you stand a chance to make $0 and lose all. So that is why I'm trying to figure out, was all of the money, all 6.2 million in volatile stocks, or was 50% of it in volatile stocks? But as I said before, Cranky, it can be a situation where there was stocks there, but they were traded, but then the statement came to whomever was managing the account, and the statement showed you owning 1 million stocks.
But CC, I'm gonna stop you right there for a reason. The statement should never, the person managing your account can maybe get your statement, but there has to be an independent process where a statement is coming to you directly, not involving the person who's managing your account. That's how good controls work. Segregation of duties. So your operations department send out the statements. The person who's managing money want to see everything in your account because they're managing your money, but they shouldn't control you getting your statements. If they're trying to intercept your statement, that shouldn't be allowed. You get your statement directly from some independent printer who sends it out. They may want to engage with you, but they ain't sending you your statement. They can control your statement. They can do what they want, but they don't control the process.
But Cranky, but based on how things were saying, it was as if Miss Panton was the one doing the statement.
And that's a big issue, which is the due diligence should have brought that out.
And as I said, it's the controls. When you're going to audit, you're testing the controls.
Yep.
So you're going to test the control framework to see if the duties are segregated. All right. This person deals with that. That person. This cannot be. The person doing payables cannot be doing receivables. The person doing cashiering cannot be doing receipt. You understand? Like you can be receipting, and then that person is also doing payments.
Right.
So all of these things, it would have to be addressed. But as I said before, based on the information that is readily available in the public, it would seem like the client relationship manager, who was Miss Panton, would have been doing all of those things.
Yeah, there's somebody in the chat called Football Guru. I'm wondering if it's an AI that's meant to be a contrarian. You may wrote an AI program and you say, I'm going to go against anything anybody else says. I'm going to be as negative as possible that I can be. I cannot believe anybody think that way. But go ahead, CC. I can't believe anybody in life think the way Football Guru thinks. It's not possible. It's got to be AI.
But the next thing about it, to Cranky, is this. Did they have fidelity guarantee insurance?
Yeah. Well, the insurance should be there almost to indemnify, right? There's got to be insurance there for a brokerage account. Like I have a brokerage account, right? And I know what the coverage is. They have SIPC in the US, for example, that covers brokerage and insurance and brokerage. So you should know what your insurance is just in case something happened for your accounts. Even though insurance companies sometimes they want to pay out.
Itself,
the company should have insurance. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying if the company don't
fraud
have,
insurance, they should have fraud insurance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fraud insurance.
Is that something that is what do you call it now? Mandatory.
No, you can self-insure. Sometimes a lot of times you can self-insure.
And that is
but you
the
gotta
problem.
have the asset to self-insure. You gotta have the asset to self-insure, right? So
yeah, you have to have the assets to self-insure. So if it's the asset to self-insure, you don't have the assets to self-insure. But when you self-insure, Cranky, those assets would be locked away. You can't liquidate them.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. Look, people may not like to hear this. I know both say you're blaming the victim, but you saying, I hate to tell you this, your people have some culpability. They do. They have culpability. It's your account. You're the one feeling the pain now. So you have to do all as possible to protect your assets.
But Cranky, look the amount of questions that I have been asking as a novice. You're going to tell me, say the person who is doing it is not asking these questions. The first thing I'm going to go in there and I say, oh, do you guys have insurance? I would like to look at the policy. I need to see the wording, all of these things. I need to see these. Remember, I'm a high value client.
Yeah.
But that's why regular man coming off the road.
I say this, CC, because I've lived this life, right? Which is, you will not always get what you ask for. So, for example, if you ask me for my audit report, we had a policy saying, I don't give my audit report. I will talk you through the process. I'll talk you how it works, but I'm not going to give you my audit reports per se, right? No matter who you are, except if you can come with 10 billion, we may have to talk, but I still probably wouldn't want to give it to you, right? I used to push back hard on it. But I'll say this though, but you do due diligence, which is I got to come to you and walk you through everything that we do. Right. And what you do is you do compare and contrast between different departments and who come and talk to you about different things to make sure they're aligned. Go ahead.
But then, Granky, if it is a publicly traded company, you can't stop me from giving me.
No, we're talking about internal audit, not external audit. There's a difference.
No, I'm saying external. No, I was saying external.
Yes, right? External, you got to get the report. You got to get the report. Yeah.
So externally, I'm just saying. Yeah. But I'm saying internally, like when I come in to do my due diligence, in terms of, I want to know who, when it comes down to like the statements, when it comes down to like, when the transaction comes, like you have to walk me through the operation. So we can know that these are the different individuals that are dealing with my money. Remember, as I said before, it's that you're an high value client. So there are things that you would need to go in and state where you need to know the process. And before you start investing, you'd actually say, you know what, I'm going to go over this. So you keep a meeting with your client, because you would have been the business manager, keep a meeting, go through, at least take 2 weeks or even a month, depending on how long you want to take, and go through all of the things. Yeah. Go through all of the things that you need to do to ensure that the money is going to somewhere that is valid. And then the next part of it too, Cranky, is this. Periodically checking up. In terms of periodically checking up, doesn't have to mean you get a statement. You don't leave it as a statement. You get what I say, like you go in and actually verify.
People, CC's mentioning important. Here's what CC's mentioned something important. This is 2025. So 2023, for example, right? We're in the era which is you can go online and check your damn account. I hate to be saying the word damn. Nobody should tell you how much money you have in your account. You go check your account. As I say, I check my account every day. I have multiple accounts. I check them every day. Make sure that what is there is supposed to be there. I probably don't check my credit card statement every day because I'm always finding some charge on it like a month later. But I know what I have to pay credit card, so I know it generally. But my accounts where I'm checking every day, and CC's making a point, which is this. You said go if the lady sending you bad statements, weren't you checking your accounts? Didn't someone go in and check your account? That is amazing that doesn't occur. That's amazing to me that no one's going online in 2023 in January before that checking to say, you know what do we have in our portfolio? You can't see your portfolio, something is wrong. I don't care if it's Jamaica or not. But go ahead, CC. That's a great point.
I had some stuff the other day, and I was doing some business. I'm selling. It wasn't no great money, but I could do, and I do bank with JMB. Right. JMB have a port. JMB have a portal, right? any amount of accounts you have, it comes up in the portal. Your investment account comes up in the portal. And it shows how much money you have. It shows when the stock is traded. It shows if it went up. It shows if it went down. Right?
So you're saying you have a consolidated statement, right? Where all your different accounts are consolidated in one place. Okay.
Yes. And you just click on the one that you want. Okay. And I could just and also you can buy and sell stocks from that account.
Okay.
So you don't even need a brokerage. Like you don't go into the brokerage account. Like for me, I wouldn't need to go into JMB to buy a stock. I just go on the stock exchange and their portal. I just buy the stock. So if I want the stock, like say, so when they were selling Trans Jamaica Highway, if I wanted to buy it, so me have $1 million, I just put in a bid. And then when I put in a bid, then it would tell me if I got it or not. Then I put in the minimum bid that I want. So the stock is selling for $5. I'm gonna say, the maximum I'm going to pay for this stock is $7, and I cap it.
Yeah, no, sister, see, the people say you look like you're hungry for your dinner. You eat while you talk to me.
No. But seriously though, I'm saying that there are different things that in place. If it is that they don't have a portal, you have to find out what do they have that you can go in and verify your amount.
No. It's 2020. It's 2020. It was 2023 then when they discovered this.
Yeah,
you should be. This has been happening now for a while. And you can't say, well, we're not a first world country. No, you can go online and check your accounts.
Yes,
or you know what? You go in and check because if you're saying the lady's sending you statements, if it's on the portal, then it can't be no statement situation of people. That means it's in the account. I don't care what statement you want to send me. I can see my account online, what's there. So if it can't be just her alone doing this crap. If they could go online, or they could go online, but it has to be. That's why I invest with them.
But then, Cranky, imagine getting a statement from the bank. And then this is the next thing. I don't get statements from the bank like that for my bank account. I just go in, there's a statement on the bank, I can download the statement myself. But also, I see my information on the bank account there. Right. And then I have something on my bank account that shows track spending. And then I can go in it and say, I spend this money on this. And if I see something funny, I'm like, call up the bank. Like, I don't understand. I don't know this transaction. I block the card at the same time. So all I'm saying is that the person who's managing the account, this person has to take culpability. There's negligence.
They're partially culpable.
Yeah, there's negligence all over, Cranky, because there's no way. No.
You should qualify. You're saying that me, the liar thought about say. I didn't play what he said, but he must say defamation and sue. Because Jamaica don't love sue nowadays, you know. American 51st state or something. No, Canada 51st state. Now probably about the 54th state, Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Because a peer sue me, you want the defamation sue. The lady says you may have to take some culpability. That no sue thing. What's defamation about that? Frankly, I could prove in a court of law that you were negligent in some respects. I could go to court of law and say, you know what? Did you check your account? Did you check your statement? Who looked at the account? Who did you do your due diligence? Any reasonable person would say, you know what? That's basic. Why didn't you do any of those? I don't know if they did or not, but they haven't come out and said they did. So,
listen, as far as I see it, for me, in terms of, I'm not, all right, put it like this then. I don't know what they did or whomever did. But in terms of my personal self, if I'm putting money with anybody, I'm going to check my account periodically.
You know why it's important? You're making a great point, which is this. Especially in Jamaica, where we've seen a number of financial institutions fail. Look at what happened in the 90s and even subsequent, and nobody goes to jail, or very few people go to jail when this happened. So you got to take extra caution when you're investing in financial institutions in Jamaica. It's a fact. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so basically, as I said, it's a situation where you need to go into your account and verify all of these things. Yeah. And in terms of, as I said before, it's on the institute, it's on the regulators as well, and it's on the institution. It's on a it's multifaceted, Cranky.
Right.
But for me personally, if I add money and I'm putting it somewhere, some people have got to say, "Oh boy, that man can't watch his money, sir."
Yeah.
They them have got to say, "They can't watch his money, sir."
Yeah, for watch your money now, because it's very important.
I feel it. And then me feel it for the other people them to lose their money, because I'm like, nobody in this institution was looking at their money.
So that's another thing too. 199 other people lost their money. How is that? So those people didn't check their statements. I'm confused about all of this. There are things that we don't know, we may never know, which are not becoming clear. You cannot convince me that this lady acted independently and on her own about what transpired. There's more to the story. And I would love to hear what Kroll Associates come out with, because I assume that they're just following the money, right? They're just following the money. They should just follow the money. It's not a hard audit on CC. Maybe what they did with the money subsequent to money getting to SSL is maybe hard, because you know where the money gets moved when they pull out cash. But it also, if it's a large amount of cash, it has to be you're doing wire transfers, right? Or writing checks. It can't be just pulling cash out. It's a lot of cash to put.
No money can't, because remember, because AML framework in terms of the amount of money that they're pulling, it has to be.
Yeah, but if you're pulling too much cash, then the bank itself should be suspicious.
Yeah.
Right? If you're pulling money out the bank should be suspicious about how you're gonna get to pull all this money. And the question of that thing too, with the bank, was the money in who's wasn't their client accounts? The bank should be suspicious. An individual pulling money out, it has to be pulled out on behalf of SSL. Isn't it happening? And they have to be authorized people who are authorized to pull the money out for this to transpire. It doesn't make any sense, people.
Listen, as I said, Cranky, there are things that we don't know. Maybe we'll never know.
Yeah.
And but as I said, this is just one of the. And then you mentioned the Bernie Madoff thing, but you remember when there was a situation where a lot of persons were pulling out of the institutions their money. I think there was 300 and something million, or billion that was pulled out of the market. So it can result in a situation in Jamaica where a lot of persons pull their money.
Yeah, so you can't control what we call a run on the market, a run on the banks, right? You can't control that. And that can put you in a different situation. So here's an example, very plain example. So you're at the bank, you have $100, right? Depositors money. 100 people give you $1 each. You format that $100 because you can't keep it all cash. You got to pay them interest on their money. You put 50% in as loan to businesses. You put 30%, say, in the markets to buy instruments, and you have $20 in cash. If the 100 people come for their money tomorrow, you ain't got $100 to give them. In fact, what you have maybe less than 100, it could be more than 100, but it's not cash to give them right away. That's what Madoff run into. That's what Madoff run into. Everybody want their money at the same time. He doesn't have the money. His was worse though, which is he didn't have the money invested someplace else because he already gave back people their money as a return because of Ponzi scheme. In the SSL case, if somebody had a run on the bank or run on their organization, it could put them in financial trouble because they have to go and collect from all these people owe money to, and they have contracts with them for a longer term period. They'd have to go borrow money to pay and hope that the money that they make can pay down on the debt.
As I said, Cranky, this is what I think a lot of persons have to realize. As I said, when they make a run on the bank, like if 100 persons, as I put it, plain and simple, went to the bank and say, we need back our money. Right?
Yeah.
The bank won't have the money to give them.
Nope.
Or they wouldn't have it readily available to give them because they would have to liquidate other instruments in order to give them that money.
And there's a timeline to liquidate because I want money now. I don't want to go sell some stock or some bond to give me money. Give me money now. I got a bank. I gave it to you. Give me money now. I give you a short story. One time when I was young in the military, I put my money in Chase Bank. I want to buy a new car. I went to get my money and they told me they can't give me all at once. It says like $10,000 and it was a lot of money then. And I told my mom was with me. I said, leave the bank because we're going to have a problem. The police is going to come to get me. I want my money now. I got to get my car now. They gave me my money, but they said they couldn't give me $10,000 at once. I was like, are you out of your mind? You have my money. So say 100 people come want their money all at once and you don't have the money. It's a problem. That's what happens. It happens. That's what happens when you have. So in 2007, with a lot of this, where everybody's trying to get their money out right away, and organization may not have the cash to provide to them because the cash is distributed in other ventures, and it makes that very, very difficult. That's not the case with SSL. We don't know what happened with SSL. We probably will never know what truly happened to SSL. But what we think we can say is there are things you can do when it's your money to protect yourself. Don't put it in some organization you know nothing about. Don't put an organization which don't have good, I'm going to use the word good credit, to not have money in the bank. They're getting bad reports from the regulators, bad reports from the auditors. Do your own due diligence to get comfortable with the organization. Even then, they may have problems, but at least you know you made best efforts to protect your money.
But is this just all right? Remember the runner girl, Frankie, that was, I think she ran for the US. The last one that won a medal with the relay team. What's her name again? She's a financial advisor or something like that. No.
Yeah.
You remember her name?
No, I don't.
She's in the finance. So there was this story with her recently where she said she lost millions. Sorry, she lost thousands of dollars through investment advisors, and then that's how she ended up in this.
In the field. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember her name because I want to remember the story where it's basically like investment advisor turned athlete turned investment advisor. You remember the athlete that?
No, I don't.
Remember the athlete Cranky? He was a US athlete. I think she won in the 200 meters. She won a medal.
Not Gabby Thomas. Somebody else.
No, man. Is older. Is an older athlete.
Okay,
man.
that's what you're saying. I say
with Veronica Campbell Brown.
Oh, way back when. No, I don't know her. But it's a hard lesson to learn, right? You spend all your life generating assets. You feel good about yourself. You feel financially secure, and you wake up one day and you're broke. Oh, by the way, people, that's what old people feel when scammers scam them. They save all their money. That is your Bolt got scammed. That's how old people feel. So some people in Jamaica support scamming. That's what happens. You work all your life. You save your money. You're older. You're not as sophisticated. Some scammers send you some note. They take your money, and then you are, you know what, because you have no money now to sustain you in retirement.
That's all the judge.
It's a scam. Yeah.
Lauren. You know what's your name again, man? Lauren Williams.
Okay. I don't really know.
Remember Lauren Williams? So she was a US Olympic gold medalist, right?
Okay.
She had a $200,000 a year sponsorship, Cranky. And she lost, she said, that was when she was 20. And by 30, she was an interning for $12 an hour.
Yeah, but see,
So remember, she was earning $200,000 a year, and that was like pre-2010s. 200,000 US from sponsorship.
Yeah.
And then, like by the time she's 30, in a 10-year period, you would say that is what, $2 million. But then you would probably have other stuff.
Yeah.
But she ended up changing because I said she lost her money to bad investments and everything. And then she has done the CFP course, that is certified financial planner, and she's now a certified financial planning analyst.
Yeah, well, when you learn the hard way, you hopefully look, you can have bad investments. Bad investment is not necessarily scamming, right? It could be, but it also could not be. I invest in something, it was a good idea, it didn't work out. Versus I invest in something because my brother is involved in it and it wasn't going to go to anything. That's really bad advice. Or it could be that scam. I took the money and didn't invest in anything.
Yeah, because the thing about it is, remember, sometimes you're an athlete and you will earn money in just from running or doing sports, Cranky, where you should be set for life. But based on the investments that you've made, or based on investments you'd made, and things would have happened, you find yourself back in a situation where, as I said, Lauren Hill is a perfect example. Oh, she was clearing $200,000 a year from just sponsorship deals, right. And then you'd know. Then she went to an internship for $12 an hour because of losing all her money through investments. So I mean, because she said she never understood at that point in time, so she would have said she should have relied upon some our Tom. People, these are not real names, people, but she would rely on someone to, tell her that, all right, we'll put the money here, we'll put the money here, we'll put the money there. And she lost all of it.
So somebody laughing, that's saying Lauren Williams, not Lauren Hill.
Yeah, that's what the Lauren Williams, man.
No, but saying, Lauren Hill had issues. Musician Lauren Hill with Marathon and Barley, she has money issue, tax issues with the taxman act.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, she now went and got her own education in the financial markets, and she now became a certified financial planner. I think she's running her own little thing where she helps athletes in terms of their investment and give them investment advice. So it's a situation, Cranky, where we have seen a lot of sport. Fortunately for Mr. Bolt, he is not bankrupt, right? As in, fortunately, because we have seen a lot of athletes, Cranky, where they lose all of their money.
Yeah, here's what I don't hear though in the whole discussion. So if somebody default clients for 30 million and politicians are involved, how come the silence is deafening from the politician? Did they get back their money? That's the first thing. Second thing
You know
is this. Wait, second thing is this, which is this. If somebody default money, then the first thing you do, you go after the person to recover the assets. I don't hear anything about that. So where the hell are we?
Cranky, there's a question that I wanted to ask, which is this. Did some people get back their money? I just said it. You just said it anyway. Did some people get back their money? And whatever money was left in there? Because the last news that came out was that it is $12,000 loan left in the account.
Yeah, the question somebody should be asking the prime, because they're saying September they're going to distribute money, not 30 million. Did the prime minister get back his money? Is anybody asking the prime minister that? They say he had an account. The lawyer said that. Did the prime minister get back his money?
No, but remember they said that his money was drew out of it 3 months before the situation occurred.
That's very convenient.
I don't know.
But they said politicians had money. They're not just the prime minister, right? So did they get back their money? That's the question. Did they get back their money?
But I don't know, but I think they were saying there was some amount of money that people got back, which I saw some information like they were saying. I think people would have had money in there and they would have, I don't know how they do it, but because the accounts were in freeze or frozen from what I've heard, from the stories that are out there.
Right.
So in terms of what is out there, Cranky, my argument is like, who have gotten back their money and why are some people have not gotten back their money. And there's 2 claims that have been filed already. I think there's somebody named Sophia Elizabeth Ford and and Bolt would have filed a claim against them. Those are the 2 claims that would have filed. There was a claim filed against a director at the company, but that claim was dropped because that director had resigned, but they didn't take. This is the next thing. Director resigned, but the information wasn't updated.
So here's the question also, which is this. If you think about this, which is, was it really discovered in January or was it discovered before January? But it became public in January. Right? Because sometimes
it was
you find a problem.
In January.
Well, it said January 2023 is when it got publicized, right?
It was discovered in, I think, about November.
Okay.
Around about them time there.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was about November. But then January was when they filed the claims.
Right.
That January was when both team went public with it.
Okay.
But they said they found out like in November.
Yeah, I do think if I was Bolt, it's kind of hard for him to do though, because you don't get the opportunity to do the investigation yourself, right? That's part of the problem people don't realize. As the victim, you are at the mercy of the regulators and others involved in this. You don't have any control. Now you may sue, and when you sue, you may get more access. That's what Bolt probably should do, which is going to cost him more money. It's very expensive too. But he probably should file a suit and then do their own forensic examination and look at what's been looked at to figure out exactly what transpired. Because they should be pursuing the perpetrator of the fraud, whoever the person he or she is, not just Panton, whoever that other person may be. If there are other perpetrators, they got to be pursued.
Listen, the situation. All right, the veil of incorporation, Ganky?
Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, it seems like that's what is going on. People are just behind the veil of incorporation.
So they're saying they're only subject, your personal assets are protected, and therefore the corporation has to stand on its own. So anything you're pursuing has to go into the corporation, which has no assets. So that means you get nothing.
Yeah, because remember the company is a separate legal entity from the directors.
But Panton doesn't have that, right?
No, she doesn't, because she would have not been like a director.
Exactly. Well, no, she's the one perpetrated the fraud, so they can come after her assets.
Exactly.
And here's the other thing, too, people. If you're doing this fraud, you may pass the assets down to other family members. They should be looking at all of this, right? Because she could have said, you know what? I may get caught, so I'm going to give it to my daughter, my son, my mom, my dad, my friend. They should be pursuing all of that. There's a money trail, and the money trail has to be followed.
Yeah, but then, but Mr. always like the money, not too much information that is not yet out there. Yeah. They must have done it, because if there was a forensic audit that they said that there was done, and it was confirmed that both money was there. So that is why I'm still trying to figure out how is it that the radio show is saying that some of the money might have been intercepted, when the forensic audit was confirming the money.
Yeah,
I think there was something with the guy named-
look, there's different set of auditors who came in, right? And there's different set of communication that's done. You know, information may get, we can be conspiracy theorists, we can speculate, we don't know, but you can imagine how they're going to try to manage this, because people are always trying to manage these situations.
But I think there was a situation with the guy named Tomlinson who confirmed that 6.2 million US was sent to SSL over a period of time.
That's what the lawyer said. But now we're hearing it being dropped in the media and leaked that somebody may not have gotten there.
No, but my argument is this, Cranky. The people who would have audited, the people who would have done the forensic audit on the accounts, right, would have given a statement that this was the principal amount. But the amount that is being argued about is the principal plus interest, you know.
Yeah.
So the argument to me right now, if it was me, if I was both, I would basically settle for the principal, because
no. You should. I thought they were arguing whether he has any money or not. I don't think it's just principal. Principal means I get back my money. I can forego the returns on my money. Principal means I get my 6 million. I think if Bolt was getting my 6 million, he'd be happy. Forget about principal, interest and dividends and all that. He'd be happy to get his money back.
That is what I'm talking about, Cranky. But my argument is that, remember, they said that there's 12,000 US in the account left. I don't
So that
know
means the money has been paid out. Then money. There's a trailer for the money. Go find the money. Both don't accept anybody telling you about they can't find XYZ. The money was spent. The money moved. People know in Jamaica, in the elite group, they're all friends. They're all aligned. They protect each other. It's a regular thing.
But Cranky, the money has to be there. The reason why is that there are withdrawals. How was the money withdrawn? First of all, Cranky, the company must have had a bank account.
Well, and multiple bank accounts. You can't have one bank account.
And these monies were in those accounts.
And why did the regulators realize that they got to be accounts for the client's money and accounts for both the regulators and the auditors should have looked at the money that's being held, and that the account for the clients is separate from the accounts for the banks. That's basic stuff.
Oh, yeah, because you need to have a client account.
Yes,
you need to have client deposit accounts, and then you need to have the bank's account.
Yes.
The bank's business account.
Or the investment bank. Yes. The investment.
Yeah, it could not, because they couldn't mix in the money where you say, oh, all right, this is a client deposit. And it
looked like Pant another account. The client account was Pant.
But all I'm saying is that all of these, you would have to see all of the bank accounts. Unless you're telling me that they had Swiss accounts where you can't, is it like you can't get an access to it? There's some convention that they can't get access to the account?
All right. See, I'll close this down, though. I mean, there are 2 hours, I get tired.
Yeah, but as I said before, there are plenty of unanswered questions.
Yes.
And there are plenty of unanswered questions on the portfolio, unanswered questions on the number of accounts, unanswered questions on the segregation of the accounts.
See, everything is unanswered. We could name 100 things that answer questions on.
Yeah.
Right? Peter, but first of all, CC, I appreciate you coming on and explaining this to the audience. You did a good job of doing so. So I appreciate you being here. And you're in the field, you're in Jamaica, you're underground, you know how these things work. I will say this, that it's extremely disappointing. Fraud is not a Jamaica problem. Fraud is a global problem. It happens every day. The nature of this fraud, though, is concerning, because some of these things are preventable. Can't totally eliminate them, but they're preventable, or you can mitigate them. I'm not sure all the controls were in place, all the due diligence were in place, all the people were in place with required integrity, and all the follow-up investigation is what it should be, and the time of the investigation to ensure that when these things occur, they're remedied quickly, people get penalized if they need to, and people get more assurance and have more trust in the system.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sir?
So, yeah, man.
Appreciate it, CC. Go to dinner. Thank you. Can't I give a call again? Bless
all right,
up,
no
bless
problem.
Up. All right, thanks. All right, everyone. First of all, I want to say this. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being a great audience. Thanks for listening. Before you leave, you can hit the like button. I truly appreciate it. If you can go to both my Balance View channel, which way I want to do these shows, but the subscriber there is not growing, and Cranky Live. Subscribe to both channels. Tell your friends and family. We want to do much more of these, but I need encouragement. I'm not getting encouragement. The subscriber thing not growing enough. But I appreciate you being here. And let me know in the comments if this was useful, this makes sense, and also your perspective, right? Appreciate you. So have a good night. Be good. Don't know when I'll be back, but I'll be back. Take care and peace out. Thanks a lot. Cranky life is the best to be now. For the best sports talk and it's free, yo. Cranky life will be your guiding light by keeping you informed both day and night. Cranky life, till them. Cranky life, heed them. Cranky life, want them. Cranky life. From the courts to the field, we'll never lose because Cranky has the hottest news. With expert analysis, we break it down. Our in-depth coverage is best in town. Cranky life, till them. Cranky life, heed them. Cranky life, want them. Cranky life. Cranky life where the sports is spicy and where we keep the discussion lively. Cranky life, get to know the name because Cranky analysis is never lame. Cranky life, give me my Cranky life. I want my Cranky life. Must have my Cranky life. Whether it's football or track and field, you know Cranky is at the wheel. So join the journey through victory and defeat and subscribe and don't miss a beat of Cranky life. Till them, Cranky life. Heed them, Cranky life. Want them, Cranky life. If you're from England or USA, from Kingston or Bombay, from Kenya or Canada, Lagos or Havana, visit Cranky Live. Tune into Cranky Live. Like up Cranky Live. Subscribe to Cranky Live. Cranky Live coming to you on weekdays. Cranky Live sometimes on Sundays. Pull up a chair and take a seat because Cranky will always bring the heat. Cranky Live. Me say fi tell them Cranky life. Me say fi heed them Cranky life. On them Cranky life. Cranky life will be around. Cranky life is the best in town. Me say fi heed them. Me say fi want them. Me say fi heed them. Want them, heed them, want them. Cranky life. Cranky life. Heed them, want them, heed them. Want them, Cranky life. Cranky life. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them, heed them, want them. Cranky life. Cranky life. Cranky. Heed them, want them, heed them, want them, heed, want, heed them.